Possibly. That's potentially a decision they could make.
That is the decision that they have indeed made. Katie Wu with us earlier this week alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. The text line is open, 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. Also, mic drop feature. Fire them up. How you feeling today, Cardinals fans? Jordan Walker officially sent down. The team announced that earlier today. Corresponding move, Jose Fermin. He's back, baby.
All right.
He's back.
Cardinals World Series bound.
1,000 OPS in AAA.
He was crushing the ball for the Memphis Redbirds. Now he's going to be crushing the ball from the bench for your St. Louis Cardinals as they go with some different options
Gotta get touches
in the field. Alex, I got to say, I'm going to have an unpopular opinion, I would imagine. I think this was the right move. I think it was necessary. I think it was time. I think they could have made this move a week ago, and they wanted to give him a couple more shots to be able to see, hey, is the work that you're doing away from the game, is it going to translate into the game? It hasn't. He's batting 155. He's got an OPS right now that is below 500. If you look at his OPS plus, he's 60% below league average offensively. He has improved defensively to the point where he's actually a plus. He's a net positive when he's out in the outfield for you defensively right now. He's still fast as hell, so he brings a little bit of value on the bases as well. He's got a strong arm. He just can't hit. The slider away is absolutely crushing him, and it was time, in my opinion, to make this kind of a move. You can now go with Donovan and Nootbaar in the outfield in the corners. It's my guess on what they'll do today in the lineup. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. You can put both of your catchers into the lineup every day. That's your best offensive plus defensive lineup on a day-in, day-out basis. It does not currently include Jordan Walker, which sucks, and we'll get into the bigger picture takeaways from all of this here in just a bit. But, Alex, I think it was a move that needed to be made. I know you disagree with that, though. What is your perspective on this decision?
And understand, I also felt like you had to do it because there were no other options. It obviously wasn't working. I just don't like it. I don't like a guy that you started the year last season with, and then you sent him down, and we heard that, you know, he went through it for a while because it kind of hit him emotionally that he was sent down after starting the season off pretty well last season, and the Cardinals wanted him to get the ball up, and he went through it, he figured it out, he came back up, and then he figured it out as the season went along. I would have liked to see them do that here. I understand it has not looked pretty. I mean, he's got like, 9 hits so far this season. It has not been good, but it's also April, and I look at problems being beyond Jordan Walker. There's offensive problems from top to bottom with this team, and I just feel like this doesn't benefit a guy that you are making your core piece of your future. This is a guy that they have labeled as a superstar in the making. I'd like to see him figure it out at the major league level, and I know it hasn't worked out yet. I know that it's been in and out of the lineup, and they've been trying to figure it out off the field. I just personally feel like going down to Memphis to get your confidence back, if you're him, you're always looking over your shoulder when you get back to the majors. If I struggle again, I'm going to have to go back down. I got to get this right. It feels like a lot of pressure, whereas it could have been, look, you're going through it right now. We get it, but we believe you can figure it out, and we want you to figure it out up at the major league level.
Just one quick thing on that. You brought up what happened last year when they sent him down to the minors. And we've talked a lot lately about what the difference is and what the similarities are between last year's team and this year's team. I think this is so much different than when he went down last year, right around the same time. Last year when he went down, he was batting .275 with an OPS of .715. Didn't have a lot of power, but was hitting the ball, was consistently getting the average that was propping him up, right? And so it was a decision that I think was fair to criticize if you're a Cardinals fan, because then it becomes a philosophical thing of, is it better for him to continue to hit at the big league level? Yes, it's going to be ground balls, but his average is up. Can he continue to build his average, and eventually the power will come as he continues, growing and getting older? Or is it better to go down and work on the things that will bring that power earlier, and then when he comes back up to the big leagues, the hope, I would imagine at the time, was he comes back up, he has the power, and then he just hits the ground running from there. I think that was the decision the Cardinals decided to make last year. We know it was. And the other alternative would have been just leaving him up here and letting him continue to churn the numbers on the hits. That is very different than what is happening right now. This is a guy that has lost all confidence at the plate. You can see it as he walks to the plate and his approach at the plate. It's a guy that mechanically looks completely off. And so I think this is a very different circumstance under which he's going down to the minors this time around from what it was last year. Last year, you could argue either way production-wise as to whether or not it was smart. This year, the production just is not there to keep him in the lineup. And I think you could still keep him here if everybody else was producing. But when the lineup is going through a rut the way that it is, and you've got like 8 guys, 7 guys on any given day that are kind of going through it, that's where I think you have to make this kind of a decision. If everybody else around him was hitting him, maybe you don't.
Yeah, that's where I am. I think if everybody else is hitting, you continue to have him up here trying to work, but I don't even know then if he can come through, because it is clear that the book is out on him and he looks overmatched. Guys, he essentially has Mason Wynn numbers from last year, and we all agreed Wynn looked overmatched and he had an offseason to adjust. There is no adjusting on the fly to this extent for Jordan Walker at the big leagues. I think he's become so outmatched that they had to send him down. And last year I thought it was a joke, an absolute joke that they sent him down, because the production was there in terms of the batting average, the numbers. I think if you wanted to work on him hitting more line drives, they could have done it at the big league level. I thought last year, and I was on the air with Alex when that news was announced, and I would have sent down Carlson. This year, though, I have no issue with it. I think he looks completely lost at the plate, and I understand, like, you can't just send him down and tell the AAA pitchers that he's going against, hey, if you wouldn't mind that slider blown away, if you could throw that every at-bat to Jordan Walker, that would be great. But he has to find something, and he has to start working and try and build confidence and get away from the pressure cooker that is the St. Louis Cardinals. Remember when the Blues sent down Jake Neighbors 2 years ago? It was, hey, it's not good vibes right now, not good vibes. We don't want him being around here.
Yeah, this team is crap. We need to get him away.
I'm not saying that it's bad vibes for the Cardinals, because generally I think their vibes are okay.
I agree.
I think it is, hey, man, there is a lot of pressure on everybody that is struggling. Get away from this. You've got options. Go work on this in AAA. Don't feel the pressure of 40,000 people every night that wants you to say, hey, you got to go 2 for 3. We got to start seeing something. Go down to Memphis, work on your things. I have no issue with it. I think we're going to see him again this year. This is not a write him off. He won't be back.
I think he's back in, like, we'll see how long it takes him to get his confidence
I'd say June.
back. But I would say a month, maybe. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if he's back in 3 weeks. I think their hope, their belief is that, hey, go down, get your confidence back, work on a couple of things, get your swing mechanics back in place, and we'll see you soon. Like, I think that's what their hope and their belief is going to be with Jordan Walker. By the way, we got a couple of texts. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 636. Have you ever thought about the fact that Jordan Walker is just a bust 2 seasons in and he's been terrible? Just not true, guys. Last year, he was a really good offensive player. Now, defensively, he was a nightmare out there in the outfield. But offensively, he was a positive player, and he did so at the age of 21. I think people underestimate how incredibly difficult it is to be that good at this level at that age. It is hard, dude. 21 years old. The guys that are going to be drafted this year in the draft, many of them were older than Jordan Walker. We're older now than Jordan Walker is today. So those guys are going up against college players that are going to eventually be drafted, and they're still probably going to need a year or 2 in the minors. And eventually, they'll be able to get to the big leagues and perform. Walker's trying to skip all of those steps and just, boom, hit the ground running in the big leagues. So I went through earlier today, because we also got another text that said, guys, can you think of any other examples of players that are similar to Jordan Walker in terms of prospect pedigree or expectations that went through stuff like this? And I do. I've got a few. Now, these aren't all necessarily like top 10 prospects, but they're guys that went on to be stars, which is what we're hoping that Jordan Walker can become, right, Alex?
Yeah.
That's fair. Xander Bogaerts, you agree, good player?
Mm-hmm. I wanted him in the Cardinals.
His first 1,300 plate appearances in the big leagues was a below league average hitter. He hit 280, but he had no power whatsoever, did not walk, below league average hitter for his first 1,300 plate appearances through his age 22 season, which is where Jordan Walker is now. It's worth noting, Jordan Walker so far in his career has been an above league average hitter. C.J. Abrams, first 2 seasons in the big leagues, big-time prospect, came with a ton of pedigree, part of the Juan Soto return. First 2 years, 12% below league average. Hit 250, had an on-base percentage below 300, no power, basically. This year, I don't know if you guys have seen what C.J. Abrams is doing. He is tearing the cover off of the baseball. Looks like one of the best players in the league so far this year for the Nationals. He's 93% above league average offensively so far this season. Getting on base about 37% of the time and slugging the crap out of the baseball. All right, more. Jose Ramirez, good player. We all agree, one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball over the last decade. Mm-hmm. His first 630 plate appearances, which was his age 22 season, prior to turning 23 years old. 25% below league average offensively, got on base less than 30% of the time, had no power. Then boom, age 23, 825 OPS. Age 24, 955 OPS, took off, never looked back, one of the best hitters in the league since. Bobby Witt Jr., a legit MVP candidate this year in the American League. The reason, frankly, why the Kansas City Royals have any chance of being relevant this year. First 2 seasons, people were excited about what he did. Hit for a little bit of power, basically did nothing else. 10% above league average his first 2 seasons. So far this, in his career, Jordan Walker, 5% above league average offensively. Last year, though, 14% above league average. Bobby Witt Jr. this year, 70% above league average offensively. The reason why I bring that up is because to answer the question of has this happened before, are there other top prospects or guys that went on to become superstars that had slow starts to their careers? The answer is a resounding absolutely yes. Yes, 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 yes. This happens, guys. Guys take a while to develop, to become quality major league hitters. And I think there is still a lot of belief from me and from the Cardinals that Jordan Walker not only can go on to become a good player, but can still be a superstar in this league. He has had an awful start to this season. I think it's going to come around, and I think this is the right decision here. Alex, when you hear all of that about the other guys that have gone through similar stuff, does it give you any more confidence, or where do you fall?
It gives me confidence. I think it's insane to say that he's a bust. There's no evidence to be a bust. He's 21 years old. Like, if he's 29 years old, then we're talking bust. Like, we've just started talking about Dylan Carlson turning into a bust of what the expectations were. There's no way we're going to say that about Jordan Walker. So, yeah, the confidence is still there that he gets it figured out. My concern is just this is a core piece of the Cardinals' future. Like, we're not talking about just an accent piece that's supposed to help them get to a World Series. We're talking about that if you move on from Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado in the near future, this, along with Nolan Gorman, are the 2 guys that are carrying this franchise. And 21 years old, absolutely. My concern is just what the Cardinals have done with players. It's up and it's down. There's no consistency. I just don't want that to be the case with Jordan Walker. Maybe he's done for 2 weeks and he's back, and that completely wipes this all away. But it just doesn't feel right for 2 consecutive years where starts off, last year was totally a different scenario, but 2 years it's, no, we don't like it. You're going to go down and get your confidence back and come back up.
I want to talk about that a little bit more on the other side. Alex, want to hone in on that and what it means for the Cardinals' development. Like, is Walker going to be an outlier here, or is this just the way that it goes with Cardinals' young players now? We saw it with Dylan Carlson. It never really came to fruition at the big league level the way that many, including them, were expecting it to. Is this just more of the same with Jordan Walker? Want to hear from you guys throughout the day-to-day. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. You can always get involved as well on YouTube, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. That is where the YouTube chat is, the graveyard, as they affectionately call themselves. So go over there, hang out, watch the show today. We'll be taking some of your questions over there as well. Coming up next, we're going to play the lineup game, and I want to hone in on what Alex just said. Is this just the way that it works with Cardinals prospects? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. let's get into the lineup game. It's an early game, which means that we get to do it here on BK and Ferrario in the fast lane. Won't kick our ass for doing so we all appreciate that. Alex, you ready for this, bud?
I don't want to brag, but I'm feeling 110% confident this is going to be perfect.
Wow, that is like a destined for failure.
A day off tomorrow, they're leaving.
You talk a big game like Michael's, we'll see if you show up
there's
like him.
Only so many options.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We know Pedro Pajes ain't going to be in the lineup.
Fermin ain't going to be in the lineup.
Whoa.
I wasn't as confident on that one as you are.
Crap.
I tend to agree, but I
not even here yet. It's fine.
We'll see on that one. I don't think you're going to see Burleson in the lineup today. And I'm pretty sure they're not going to bench Wynn against a lefty, but who knows?
Crawford hasn't had touches in a while. Got to keep him fresh.
All right, Alex.
Yeah.
Let's get to it.
Start her off.
Donovan at the top.
I'm with you, big boy.
All right, way to go, Donnie.
Batting second, Big Willie.
Yeah. You're not taking. Did you see that home run yesterday?
He is not. He ain't gonna be behind the plate though. I'll tell you that.
Remember
much.
when Tebow was like, he's not a good catcher?
I still agree with that to an extent.
Well done, well done, well done, well done.
Now, I don't know if you caught it, BK, but Goldie looked great coming off of his two-hit performance that he had the day prior. Goldie going to stay in the 3-hole, right?
He was batting cleanup yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Arenado was in the 3-hole.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that.
Arenado doesn't move out of the 4-hole. Do you think Arenado complained and said, put me back?
I would like to see them go Herrera or Wynn batting third, but I don't think they're going to do that. So you want to do
a lot of righties in a row.
Yeah, against a lefty, though. Get him the most at-bats possible.
Yeah, but too many, you know?
Would you like to do the honors?
Yeah, let's do it. Nolan Arenado!
Nolan is a security guard at the lumber yard.
All right. You think they go back to Goldie batting cleanup?
Unless it's a day off?
I would prefer Herrera here, but I don't think they'll do it.
Yeah, I think I'll go. I think I'm with you. I'd go Goldie.
I love gold.
4 for 4.
Just move him down. They did it once. I just think it's time to do it. Okay. Anyways.
Jose Fermin.
I
think this is Ivan Herrera.
I think so, too.
I'm just going to say this right now. I think Ivan Herrera is going to hit a home run right here. Marsh just literally called that at Ballpark Village.
I love the squeaking of Marshy for how excited he was. Nolan Gorman?
Now is where it gets interesting. I would go Mason Wynn here. Lefty on the line.
I don't know if they're going to put
lefty on
Wynn
the mound.
here. I think they like Wynn where it's at.
Hasn't he been batting here?
No.
Okay. You want to go Gorman?
No. I want Gorman.
Okay. Let's try Gorman.
What the H is wrong with you,
You ruined
guys?
that for me. You knew. Oh, you knew already, didn't you?
Do you want to go Newt or do you want to go Wynn? Those are your other two options.
Let's
here.
go Wynn.
What a shame.
All right. Lars Newbar?
Yeah. Cool. We're both wrong. I feel vindicated because you were wrong just like I was wrong. You made me feel like I was an idiot.
Do you want to go with Mason Wynn next?
Now we'll do Mason
They had
Wynn.
too many righties in a row. You
Yeah.
couldn't keep that
Come on,
stretch
man.
going.
You got to throw a little curve to Montgomery.
I'm watching the Futures game and this thing's all over Instagram. It's like, this guy threw a ball 100 across the time. That's awesome. But like, how many throwing errors does he have?
Shut up.
All right. Now we're going Nolan Gorman.
Yeah. It's a lefty, though. You know, I don't know if we want to do that here. Lefty on lefty,
Just
right?
did a home run against the lefty the other night.
Yeah, it was a bullpen pitcher, though. It doesn't matter.
And it got put on the IL.
Yeah, it cancels each other. Yeah, Gorman broke him. Hit it.
Storm and Garmin. He's taking the league by storm.
Jose Fermin is the center fielder.
And Michael Ciani. Sinise.
Michael Sinise. Gary Sinise.
Michael.
You're not Michael Phelps. You're Michael Cera.
People on the text line are saying that we already saw the lineup as if it's not the same top 5 as it was yesterday.
We got them wrong.
Yeah, what, you guys watch yesterday's game or something?
You watched what they've done?
All right, Tebow, do you want to run it for us?
Leading off Brendan Donovan in left, Wilson Contreras will be the DH batting second, then Nolan Arenado at third, Paul Goldschmidt at first, batting fifth, Ivan Herrera as the catcher, sixth, Lars Nootbaar in right, seventh, Mason Wynn at short, eighth, Nolan Gorman at second, and batting ninth, Michael Ciani in center with Kyle Gibson on the mound.
My only qualm with this is that Goldie's batting cleanup, but otherwise, I think this is probably the lineup that you would want.
Lefty on the mound, man. Lefty on the mound.
He still has pretty good numbers against lefties this year. I know that unfortunately didn't work for him yesterday, but
Can't get worse.
Must have been a stud on the mound
generally been
yesterday.
pretty good. All right. Alex, I do want to get back to the conversation we were having in the last segment here for a couple of minutes. And 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You mentioned how you're worried about what this says about the Cardinals' future, because Jordan Walker's supposed to be a big part of it. We've seen now Dylan Carlson come up to the big leagues, have some early success, and then there's a significant regression that takes place, and he just never seems to get it back. Nolan Gorman came up to the big leagues, and it's been hit and miss at times since then. Mason Wynn came up to the big leagues, really struggled, and now we're seeing a lot of success. What's the future going to hold from him whenever pitchers inevitably start to make some kind of an adjustment against him? Walker, we've seen the same thing. Came up, struggled early on, if you want to call it that, sent down, had the success, and now struggling again. When you think about your critique of how the Cardinals are developing these hitters, what would you say is your biggest criticism about it?
Just the inconsistency of it, to where it feels like that if it's not working, oh, well, we got to go get them reps in the minors so they can get their confidence back. It's like, oh, he needs days off here. It feels like it's way too, if it doesn't look good, we're going to bet on somebody else, to where sometimes, and especially in the Cardinals position, where you have this core of younger players that you are going to be relying on to carry this team by next season. I mean, I think we all are on the same page that Goldie's probably not going to be here. Who knows what Nolan Arenado is going to look like? The pitching doesn't look great right now in your system. You're relying on your offense and that core of Walker and Gorman and Wynn and Lars Nootbaar. These are the guys. It just feels like it's, if I'm the player, it feels a lot like if I do something wrong, I'm either going to be sitting or I'm going to be down in Memphis, and I can't do anything wrong. And that's a really hard thing to do if you're trying to develop 20, 21, and 22-year-olds.
I guess the way that I'm looking at it, I think they pushed some guys. I think the COVID year really messed with their development system.
Absolutely.
And I think we understate just how much that impacted things for the Cardinals and for Major League Baseball as a whole. It's not just them that's struggling with some of these young guys, by the way. It's a lot of teams across Major League Baseball. I think sometimes what they do that ends up coming back to haunt them is they hype guys up in a way where there's just no way for the player to live up to expectations. Like Tyler O'Neill was the reason why they didn't sign Bryce Harper. And that was unfair to Tyler O'Neill. Tyler O'Neill was always a boom or bust type of a prospect. That's why the Mariners traded him for Marco Bleepin Gonzalez, man, who was like a really solid back end of the rotation starter. So Tyler O'Neill, it's fun, exciting, really good prospect. But it was always, there's going to be swing and miss that came in his profile. And he does have a body that, like, you wonder, is this going to be able to make up over the 162 games? Is it going to be able to sustain? Answer to that was a resounding no. So there were questions there. With Dylan Carlson, I think they just pushed him too fast, and then the injuries happened. And he's not the same player because of the injuries.
Well, and that was another one that they hyped up a lot, too. That was the cold dead hands player.
But there was a reason for it. Like, you go back and you look at his numbers in the minor leagues, his numbers in AA were as good as you'll find anywhere in anybody's system. But they pushed him because of the COVID year. He got pushed probably too fast. And in 2020, really struggled. But 2021, man, go back and look at Dylan Carlson's numbers from 2021. They were really, really good. And then the injuries took place. I think it really sapped his power, and we haven't seen him be the same guy since. You look at what happened with Nolan Gorman. Like, I think this is what Nolan Gorman was supposed to be. I know that doesn't make for a super exciting take, but Gorman's profile in the minors was this. He's going to strike out a lot. He's not going to have a crazy high on-base percentage. His batting average is going to be a little lower because of that. And he's going to hit for a ton of power. And guess what? Since he's been in the big leagues, that's who he's been so far for the St. Louis Cardinals. The guy that I feel like has not lived up to expectations thus far is Jordan Walker. Like, Mason Wynn is exactly what they said he was going to be. Victor Scott, exactly what we all feared it might be when he got to the big league level. I think Harrison Bader was exactly the player that they projected him to be. Really good in center, up and down at the plate, a lot more swing and miss than you'd like to have there as a hitter. I think, generally speaking, the profiles that you read from third parties have been pretty spot on about what the Cardinals players are going to be at the big league level. The one guy where I don't feel that way so far is Jordan Walker. And last year, second half of the season, man, as a hitter, he looked like that. So I know I'm alone on an island over here, and everybody's mad at the Cardinals, and I get it. They stink right now, and they stunk last year, so they deserve it. But, Alex, am I missing something? Where do you feel like the players that you've read about elsewhere, not just heard from the Cardinals, but elsewhere, they fell short of the expectations? Am I missing somebody?
No, I don't think so. It's not that I've read it elsewhere and like hyped up the expectations. And the other part of it that I wonder that causes some of this frustration with fans is, like, you think of the teams that are fine, like think of the best teams and how they develop players. Like the ones that come to mind, Atlanta Braves, everybody's going to talk about for when they bring up younger players and they just implement them right in. The Houston Astros being another one of those teams. They all had that protective blanket for those younger players that they didn't have to like look at them and say like, hey, we need you. And because the Cardinals haven't had those guys, and I'm including Goldie and Arenado right now, with the exception of that MVP season, those guys have underperformed. I wonder if that takes some of the blame in this too, to where if you don't have that superstar on the offensive side, and then you're looking at all of these prospects and thinking this will be the next guy, that takes us to that area, that could also stunt this development. Maybe I'm off on that.
I'm not sure I'm following.
He's saying that they've got the protective of Goldschmidt, Arenado. To this extent this year, it hasn't happened to where the stars can protect the young guys from hitting lower.
So you're not relying on these guys.
Did have that though.
Last year they did too.
2 years ago when Goldie was the MVP.
I mean, they still have those guys, and I don't know how you could possibly like count on not having that guy this year. Like,
I think it's not that you're counting on it. It's you're putting pressure on these guys to fill the void that your stars aren't doing.
But they didn't expect Goldie to be this bad. And, like, they still have Wilson Contreras, and they still have Nolan Arenado. So I don't know what they could have done to do what you're saying. Like, what would you have done in the offseason to put them in a better situation?
I don't know if there's any. I think this goes back to beyond of passing up on trading for that star player.
Like who, though? Like, I think the trades that we've been talking about are pitching.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a star player that they've passed up on other than Juan Soto, and they just weren't going to do that. And if you did that, then you wouldn't have any of these young players that we're talking about right now. And I guess that's why I'm a little like caught in between here. Is I don't know what they could have done to do what you're talking about. Like, I think they have kind of done that.
Yeah.
I think they do have a lot of those players that are veteran presences in the lineup. And right now, unfortunately for them, like one of those guys isn't hitting. And that's a big part of the problem. It's why Jordan Walker's down in AAA.
Yeah, and I don't think that this is a Cardinals thing. I know a lot of the takes that people are going to have today are the Cardinals really screwed up Jordan Walker. Guys, this is a Jordan Walker problem. Jordan Walker has to adjust to Major League pitching. This is not on the Cardinals. This is Jordan Walker not making the correct adjustment, because to your point on having the veterans, he's hitting 7th in the lineup. Hell, they bumped him down to, I think he was 8th last night. Like, that's as protected as it gets when you're hitting that low on the order. And he wasn't making the adjustments. He made the adjustments last year, but for whatever reason, he kind of reverted back to his old self and was getting beat by that slider away. That hip was leaking that Eduardo Perez had talked about from the first series against the LA Dodgers, and it clearly never got fixed. This is not a Cardinals problem with Jordan Walker's development. This is Jordan Walker. I don't know if he's stubborn. I don't think he is. He seems like a great kid and seems like a baseball nut. So I don't think this is a Jordan Walker's got a bone ahead and he's not listening to the Cardinals. This is a thing that Jordan Walker has to figure out. This isn't a Cardinals thing. This is a Jordan Walker has to figure out how to adjust to Major League pitching and do so on the fly. And now he's got to go down to Memphis and learn that. Just like the offense as a whole is not on Oliver Marmol, it's not on John Mozeliak or Michael Gersh who gets Mo his coffee. It is on the Cardinals offense as a whole has to figure it out. This is a player problem, not a front office or a manager problem.
Yeah, and like, I think some of this is just, I know people are going to get mad at me for saying it. That's fair. I think some of this is just like, man, he's young and it's going to take time. And I'm not telling you to be patient. If you want to get mad at them today, feel free to do so.
Oh,
like,
I hope we get a be patient quote today.
You can be you should be as frustrated as so many of you guys are right now, because the team is not performing up to expectations, to put it lightly. What we saw last night was an embarrassment. That should never happen.
I think Matz was good, though.
That was horrible. We'll get into that. But like, somebody on the text line said, guys, so you're telling me that Nolan Gorman's going to be a 200 hitter in his career? That's what we should have expected? No, but so far he's been a 230 hitter. And do I think that that's what he is? I kind of do. And I'm not telling you got to like that, but I heard for years that Cardinals fans wanted a pure left-handed power presence. Well, this is what it looks like. When you get that guy, like, it looks like Jock Peterson. It looks like Kyle Schwarber. It looks like Nolan Gorman. And that means hitting about 230. If you wanted to, the guys that I think Cardinals fans want are Paul Goldschmidt in his prime, but left-handed and hitting for power.
That would be great, actually.
And that guy's name is Freddie Freeman. And he's a Dodger. And
the wrong first baseman.
There's like 2 or 3 of them across the league. Like it's really hard to get one of those guys. Trust me, I think they would want one if they could get it.
And Alex, you brought up the Braves and the Astros, I think were the 2 teams that you brought up. And look, I would love to have that young core that they have. Also got to realize, guys, that is a 5-year rebuild. And what does Army keep saying about the Blues? Hey, I don't think our fans could stomach a rebound. Army even said, hey, I could get you to 15 points less or 15 losses less. Yeah, okay, now imagine the Cardinals doing last season for 5 years in a row. Because
also,
that's what
the Braves
Astros
literally
and Braves
cheated
did.
in the international system.
Whoa, just throwing out accusations around.
Their general manager was banished from baseball because of what they were doing in the Latin America community.
Be fair, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Sure, but like
BK
they were
made that clear
doing
yesterday.
some foolishness down in Latin America before there was a few guardrails that were put in place. So there was also some of that. But like this is what they won over a 4-year stretch: 79, 67, 68, and 72 games. If we're willing to go through that here in St. Louis, I bet you Mo could find a few players by going through that kind of a dry spell in terms of the winning. And the Astros, like I was down in Houston when they went through their awful, awful, awful stretch of baseball. They literally did not have games on locally. No, not like the Cardinals where there's a couple of providers that don't have them available for you right now. No, they literally... The entire community did not produce Houston Astros baseball on television. They won in that stretch of games 74, 76, 56, 55, 51, and 70 games over a 6-year stretch. That's how they got the team that they ended up building. And oh, by the way, there was other shenanigans that took place there as well. So I don't know, man. I'm not telling you the Cardinals do everything right. They don't. If you listen to this show for any amount of time, you know we've had some harsh critiques, I would say, about the St. Louis Cardinals and where they're at in their build right now. But I for the Walker thing specifically, I think the original sin was bringing him up as early as they did. And I think that kind of threw everything else out of whack. I agreed with it. I said they should do it at the time. But I think when you push it as quickly as they did, this is the logical conclusion, man, is that there's going to be some fits and starts as he goes through some of these growing pains at the big league level. All right, as Alex was watching the NHL playoffs last night, he had one player in mind that he thought to himself, hey, you want to add some jam to the Blues lineup? This is the guy that can add some jam to it. We'll tell you who that is next year on 101 ESPN.
Just heard that Fermin was waving to Walker on the way by as they passed each other on I-70.
Alongside Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. It is time. If you haven't called them already, I don't know what you've been waiting for, but Green Envy is waiting there for you. 636-757-1600. If you walked outside this morning and said to yourself, man, we've got to do something about this lawn. This is the time of the year that I look forward to at this point because of what Green Envy does for me. They come in the fall, they put down all of the seed for me, then that sprouts up going into the springtime. And Alex, now this time of the year, it's all maintenance for them. They're coming out, they're putting the fertilizers down, they leave the note on the door that says, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And really for me, with the baby boy running around, I don't want to do a whole lot. I mow, I water, and my grass looks fantastic because of Green Envy.
Yeah, when we purchased our lawn, it was green, or it wasn't green, it was dead, and then we would have these weeds popping up everywhere. Now I don't have these problems because Green Envy is taking care of the spring weeds that we get with all of the rain, the crabgrass they take care of. They're taking care of all of those issues, like BK mentioned, that I don't have to stress about anymore maintaining my lawn. And they've got licensed technicians that come out that do apply the applicator everywhere. They're licensed by the Missouri Department of Agriculture, and you know what you're getting with Green Envy. So give them a call today. Tell them BK and Ferrario sent you. 636-757-1600. That's 636-757-1600.
Terry Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals back in action today as they try to win the series against the Arizona Diamondbacks after being blown out in yesterday's game 14-1. Jordan Montgomery gets the start for Arizona. Kyle Gibson will get the start for St. Louis. 12:15 will be first pitch. The sports update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
There's nothing better than the Stanley Cup playoffs. Alex was watching last night, and he sent us a text, T-Bone, that said, if the Blues want to add some jam, I've got exactly the guy that can add that to their lineup next year. Alex, who were you watching? Why'd you think that?
Sam Bennett, and then his jam got him on a week-to-week injured list for the Florida Panthers.
Okay.
But it's still fine.
That's tough.
Still a very good player.
That's an AKO if I've ever heard one.
Pretty much. I'm not used to those, so surprisingly, it bit me pretty hard. But look, I watched the game with Sam Bennett, and when we talked with Curbs last week about this team needing to find more jam, I'm watching his first shift. He lays two massive hits on the ice against Tampa Bay that his team recovers the loose pucks from. And then following that, before the end of the first period, he makes an assist on a play that he was on one end of the ice and got it across, and then it was a one-timer. I forget who scored that. I think it was Sam Reinhart. But then he scores a power play goal a little bit later, standing in front of the net. And I'm looking at this guy play, and then I'm looking back through his career where he played with the Calgary Flames prior to Florida. The guy does everything. He's physical, may not fight as much as people would like to see, but he's big. He plays a little like Ivan Barbashev in terms of he hits everything. But if you look at his NHL Edge page, he stands in front of the net. And I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking to what Doug Armstrong talked about, saying, okay, we don't want to have somebody that comes in and plugs the holes of somebody and keeps us from developing. You got a centerman who can play the wing. You got a guy who's coming off of a 20-goal season who had 100 penalty minutes and who's a proven goal scorer in the playoffs. I'm not sure you can find a better player that you could realistically acquire that provides jam, leadership, and the ability to be a top six winger or centerman for you than what Sam Bennett is.
So I'm going to play the other side of this. You said he's under contract for another year, correct?
Yeah, I think it's 4.5.
So why, if I'm the Panthers, am I trading Sam Bennett?
Cap hell, because I got to sign Sam Reinhart. And Sam Reinhart, for those that don't know, is a 50-goal scorer. And those 50-goal scorers, I heard they get paid pretty nice. So if you're talking about him making, I'm trying to pull up Cap Friendly, if you're talking about him making $8 million, they also have 7 other unrestricted free agent forwards. Right now, as it stands, they have 7 guys under contract on the forward position and 4 guys under contract on the defensive position and 1 goaltender locked up. And right now, next season, I think they're projected to have $20 million in cap space.
I don't see a problem there.
So, 8 of that is going to go to Sam Reinhart if you'd like to keep him. So now you got 12 to figure out how you're going to sign 8 forwards and 3 defensemen and a goaltender. I think they're going to be one of the few teams that are going to be in cap hell next season, even with the cap rising. And if you're them, we've got a top line in Barkov and Tkachuk and Sam Reinhart. We've got Carter Verhaeghe, who's been good for us. We've got some lower line pieces. What if we can restock the cupboard by trading somebody that's going to be a free agent in 1 more year?
I mean, if they're willing to do that, they could get an absolute haul for somebody like Sam Bennett. And that's where it goes back to, what are you willing to offer if you're the Blues? Like, if you're in the Blues scenario and you're looking at this and thinking, okay, we would love to have ourselves a Sam Bennett. What are we willing to offer in that scenario, Alex? Because it can't be something that's making money. Like, for a lot of teams, you could make the case of, okay, well, it makes sense for them to come acquire Jordan Kyrou because Kyrou locked up long-term. He's got the $8 million deal. How do you acquire a Sam Bennett if you're in Doug Armstrong's situation?
I think this is one of those things where you trade future assets for a player that helps you now. And if you're Florida, I understand you don't want future assets because you're trying to compete now, but you also need cap space so that you can sign other pieces. So you might be talking about one of the prospects that could be ready to play for you. Maybe a guy like a Zach Dean, if you don't feel like it fits into your criteria, or maybe a Scott Perunovich because they're going to need some help on the defensive side. This feels more like what is Florida going to get in return than it feels like, well, we got to get rid of this player like what Vegas did last couple of seasons trying to cut
and that's
salary.
Why the haul's going to be significant.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking Dvorsky, you're talking Snuggerud, you're talking Neighbors. Like, those are the names that if I'm in Florida scenario, I'm going to be asking for. Because there is that year left, and it's a super reasonable contract.
Yeah.
$4.4 million is a steal for a player of his caliber that can be that second-line center for you. In talking to Doug Armstrong, I did not get the sense that they're interested in trading Dalibor Dvorsky, for example. So, I mean, you're talking Snuggerud probably. You're talking... I don't even know what beyond that, but maybe Joel Hofer. Maybe you're talking first-round picks.
I don't know if it's going to be that extreme though, and this is a different scenario because
for
the player,
a 27-year-old center.
That's yes, but they realize that they have to open up cap space so that they can re-sign Sam Reinhart. So I don't.
But if I'm them, do I want to re-sign Sam Reinhart at the expense of Sam Bennett?
Maybe. But do you also? I mean, you also have to look at it kind of as you're putting your entire roster together. I've got to fill like 8 other holes right now, and as much as I don't want to lose a Sam Bennett, can I get other pieces with that cap space that I'm saving in him?
But I'm only saving $4 million, and now if I am signing Reinhart, to your point, I'm signing into an $8 million contract. So I'm actually making my team more expensive by re-signing Reinhart than by re-signing or by keeping or trading Sam Bennett. So basically, I'm a +4. I've added $4 million for the same number of players on my roster by re-signing Reinhart instead of keeping Bennett. So wouldn't it make more sense for them to keep Bennett, let Reinhart walk, and now I'm going to go either to market or to make trade, whatever, and try to fill my roster accordingly, and then extend potentially Sam Bennett after next year?
I would much rather have a 50-goal scorer than a 20-goal scorer on my roster. And if I got to sacrifice a 20-goal scorer who's making, this is like sacrificing a Brandon Saad on your side for somebody that you know is a 50-goal scorer that you want to keep locked up. And, the other scenario that I wonder if the Blues have to get to is if the Pavel Buchnevich front, if he's not willing to sign a contract extension, do you have to look at moving him on and replenishing that position elsewhere? And then you look at this route and find a younger player who is, I would say, less of an offensive producer, but more in line of what you're looking for if you get to the point where Pavel Buchnevich doesn't want to be here for one more year.
And I love the option. Like Sam Bennett, I mean, he's a consistent 40 to 50-point producer, a guy that plays quality right down the middle for you and adds, to your point, a little bit of jam to the lineup. I don't know what they would be looking for in return, but I would have to imagine it's something that affects their team right now. They also, like, if you end up losing Bennett, now I've got to get another center, a guy that can play down the middle for me if I'm Florida every single night. So it's a tough spot to be able to acquire a player like that. But whether it's Bennett or somebody similar, that's the kind of player that I think the Blues should be kicking around right now. In talking to Army, and I don't know if you maybe had a different sense, Alex, when we talked with them the other day, I don't think they're going to be looking for a player like this. I think instead they're going to believe that Dalibor Dvorsky can be that guy by the end of next year, and they hope internally they have somebody that can be their Sam Bennett by the end of the 2025 season, essentially.
Yeah, which I believe that's the route they want to go with this, but I also look at it, and I got to imagine that Doug Armstrong is looking at his roster saying we can't run it back with the same thing once again. And if you're relying on Dvorsky to take that next step, again, this really comes down to what the future is with Pavel Buchnevich.
And Kyrou. I think that's got to be what they're thinking right now.
But you can't look at that roster as a forward and say, okay, well, we're comfortable with this for another season. I think you'll have to shake it up somehow, and that's why these teams that are in the playoffs, when they get bounced from the first round, if they get bounced from the first round, or if a team goes into cap casualty, that's where you typically, if you're a Blues team, try and pounce to get one player that could add a little bit extra to your roster.
T-Bone, I'm curious your thoughts on this as well, because I think me and Alex are coming at it from different perspectives is what I'm getting here. I would be surprised if the Blues add a significant addition to the forward group this offseason. Where do you stand? Do you think that they're going to make something that fans view as a splash for their forward group going into this offseason?
I don't think for the forward group. I think if they do, it'll be on the defensive side.
That's where I fall as well.
I think and the reason that I kind of think that, and it came from when Army said it and it sent off like alarm bells for me, is it almost sounded like if they're looking for the number 2 center, he had said, like, we don't want someone on a long-term deal because we don't want to block Dvorsky.
Right.
Someone then has to kick out to a wing. And he also had brought up the idea of, like, is Booch still a centerman? Well, we saw we kind of tested it out. I think there's a chance if they re-sign Booch, or even if they don't, or they just go out to the market and look for a stopgap centerman to be the number 2, who's probably going to be a underqualified number 2 centerman. I think they're waiting on a stopgap. They want Dvorsky to develop into that number 2 center, and I think that's the spot where you make this splash that we're talking about. And that's why I think if they're making that big move, it's on the defensive side of the puck.
I think you just got to get different personalities in that room, I think, and I would look at it as we got to find a way to move on from Kevin Hayes and replace that role with somebody with a veteran presence. And that's where if you can find a player kind of in the sense of what Pavel Buchnevich was. I mean, this is somewhat the scenario that the Blues acquired Pavel Buchnevich from the New York Rangers,
for sure,
where the Rangers were like, well, we can't afford to re-sign him. He's got one more year. We might as well trade him and get something back in return. That's where it feels like the Blues might be this offseason, where it's like, look, you're not going to acquire a top-line winger, but can we get somebody who maybe projects as a third-line winger, but we can move him in a second-line role on this team, and can we pounce if they can't find a way to afford him? I look at it as you have to fill the void that was Kevin Hayes this offseason, because that's the spot. You put a Dalibor Dvorsky, I think that's the second-line centerman we're talking about. I think you got to move on from Kevin Hayes and find a way to fill that role that you thought he was going to provide you.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we're going to hear from you guys. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. When you heard the news today that Jordan Walker was going to be sent down to AAA, I would imagine there's maybe not shock, but unease about that decision as a Cardinals fan. What went through your mind, both in the short term of just hearing Walker's going down and also the big picture of what this means for the Cardinals in their player development, what it means for Walker's future, etc. Want to hear from you guys. We'll get into that coming up at 12 o'clock. But coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. We've gone long on a few segments today, which means that I have done a bad job with the clock, which means that this will be a short segment. From the 314. Hey, guys, who do you think has the higher ceiling, Snuggerud or Dvorsky?
Ooh.
I would always lean towards the center, so I'll say Dvorsky, not because I think he's going to score more goals, but being a big-time center is more valuable, in my opinion, than the winger.
Yeah.
All things being equal.
I'd probably go Dvorsky as well, especially picked in the top 10. Not that Snuggerud can't be a big-time deal, but when you're a goal scorer, to get to that level, you're talking 40-plus goals, and I don't know if Snuggerud is that.
Yeah, this is interesting because I would say Snuggerud because I think Snuggerud's got the shot to where he may not score like 40-plus goals at like even strength, but can he get there because of the power play and the points he could put up there? Absolutely. So I think the higher ceiling is for Snuggerud just because I think he's going to be able to be a more pure goal scorer than what Dvorsky is. And
Dvorsky scored 45 goals in 52 games for OHL, though.
Maybe. I just have always felt like Snuggerud's shot, and we've talked about it, his shot is ready for the NHL now. So if it's ready for the NHL now, give him a couple of years of development at the NHL level. I think his ceiling is just a little bit higher than Dvorsky. I'm not saying I'm low on Dvorsky. I just think it's a little bit higher.
I think both are top 6 players for you.
From the 314, guys, outside of Matt Carpenter in the Mo era, can you think of a player who came through the Cardinals system that they did not trade for that had sustained success at the major league level? And if so, what is your baseline for sustained success? Let's focus on the first part of that. Who is the player outside of Carpenter in the Mo era that you can say had sustained success for the Cardinals offensively? I'd say, now this is not at the highest of levels, but somebody that immediately came to mind for me was like Tommy Edman. Tommy Edman's been a pretty good player. Tommy Pham would fit into that criteria.
It wasn't with the Cardinals, was it?
And he did it for, 3 years
Wasn't
here?
very long, though. Like I wouldn't. When I'm thinking long term, I'm thinking like, the guy
Carpenter's
came up
like
and
10 years.
Yeah, I'm not even thinking 10 years, but like go through the arbitration process with them.
Okay.
And like
would you consider Colton Wong?
I'd call him a success. The only reason they got rid of him was the COVID, right? COVID year and the option.
The money.
Yeah,
money.
Outside of that, though, like it's hard to like pinpoint who else would fall into this. I would say Bader maybe fell into that, but
he couldn't stay healthy.
The
though,
fact that we can't
time.
come up with many options is telling. Like, it's a problem. I think this goes back to their philosophy, though. Like, their goal was not to develop these players at the big league level. Their goal was to develop pitchers to the big leagues until the last 5 years or so. And then we saw the shift. So if you asked me the same question pitching-wise, I could give you a litany of options.
Yeah.
But on the hitting side of things, they were mostly doing that with later-round draft picks, which is how you get to this place. Now they've switched their philosophy. They've put many more resources into the hitters. And so I think that what you're watching now is the results of that. Gorman could be that guy. Walker could be that guy. Donovan could be that guy. Nootbaar could be that guy. You could add 5 to 7 players on the current team. Herrera could be one of those guys for you. But previously, I don't think they focused on it, so you got more of the average major leaguer.
Yeah, and Matt Adams falls into that. I think he was a Mo draftee, but yeah, you're right. Because they didn't emphasize it. And again, like my biggest critique has never been like they aren't good at drafting because they constantly draft average or above average pitchers, average to above average position players. They haven't landed the star. They don't take the big swing. Like their most recent draft pick was, in terms of pitching, was what? Like Cooper Jerpy was a top round pick. Yeah. Michael McGreeve was a top round pick. Everybody
Jack Thompson was a top round pick.
Let's not bring that one up. Sore subject today. All those guys weren't like high ceiling pitchers. It was, what we drafted? We drafted a good pitcher. Okay, well, why not take that swing to where it could flop miserably, or it could be like, hey, you just drafted the next superstar stud pitcher like a Spencer Strider.
Somebody said, can you name the pitchers? Sure. Lance Lynn, Carlos Martinez, Jaime Garcia, Michael Wacha, Jack Flaherty, Dakota Hudson, Shelby Miller. Like, you could go through a number of them that ended up. And you may have pushback and say that's not successful. Show me the teams that had significantly more success with guys that they drafted and developed. It's very rare to have like a 5 to 7 year stretch of a guy being really good for you. Cardinals have been pretty good on the pitching side of things. Previously, that dried up starting in like 2019-ish. And now we're seeing the results of what happens when your development system on both sides goes through a bit of a dry spell. All right, coming up next, I want to hear from you guys. The mic drop feature is on the 101 ESPN app. This is going to be a big picture thing. How are you feeling about the Cardinals right now? I got a sense yesterday, Alex, after hearing from people on Twitter and then our text line, kind of thinking about this a little bit, it almost feels like, and I'm not telling you you're wrong to do this, but it feels kind of like Cardinals fans are rooting against the 2024 Cardinals. And I think the reason why you would do so is because you want anything that will instill change in the organization. And for you, the one thing you see that could do that is a lot of losing. Are you feeling that way? And how does the Jordan Walker decision play into that? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my insurance agent, Tracy Bibb, her and her team taking care of people and making sure they are saving you money. When it comes to your car, your home insurance, everyone loves saving money. You need to get with the right insurance agent, and that's what Tracy and her team offer. Competitive rates. You also get personal attention, which I think is so important for something as important as insurance, making sure you're able to talk with them. You have Tracy's phone number. You have her email address. You can get in contact with her whenever something happens. And look, they preach it's not a matter of if, it's always about when something happens. When it does, you have to be able to contact your insurance agent. Some people don't even know the name of their insurance agent. That's not the case with Tracy Bibb. So you can give her a call today, tell her Alex Ferrario sent you, and you can get a free non-committal quote. She'll walk you through the whole process, what you need to do. It'll get you switched over, taken care of, and then you'll be with the right insurance agent. 314-328-4260. That's 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb.
Can we all please agree that the Cardinal way is dead? You know, I see people in the comments section, the Cardinal way, the Cardinal way. The Cardinal way has been a thing of the past for a few seasons now. It's pathetic.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, that was Ben talking about how the Cardinal way is dead here in St. Louis. I think there's some truth to that. I think that everybody's got a different idea, though, of what the Cardinal way is, how successful it is, and when it went awry. But I do want to hear from you guys. The Mic Drop features on the 101 ESPN app. He's talking about Jordan Walker, where the Cardinals are at. I do want to hear from you on both the Walker decision and where it puts the Cardinals with Walker's long-term future and how it plays into their development of players in general. And I want to hear from you on if you're rooting for or against this team right now. I get the sense, Alex, that there's a decent number of people in our listening audience that are flat out rooting against the Cardinals right now, that just want them to lose. And they're doing so because they want to see change. And so the one way they feel like they can get change within the Cardinals organization is to see them continuously lose, despite that bringing them no joy whatsoever while they're watching the baseball team play. So I get
team player right there.
I've been there. As the Chiefs fan growing up when I was a kid, Scott Pioli took over the organization. And it was a bleeping nightmare, an absolute nightmare, man. They didn't have a quarterback. They bring in Matt Castle, and the guy just sank the organization to depths the likes of which I've never seen before in my entire life. So I was rooting actively for them to lose football games to get his ass out of there as quickly as humanly possible. So I've been in that spot before. I understand where you're coming from. I don't blame you if that's where you're coming from, but it's just it's a tough way to watch your team. Because instead of rooting for them and getting joy out of the winning, now you're rooting against them and you don't get joy out of anything. Because when they win, you're upset because they won. When they lose, you're upset because, your team lost. But I guess, cool, it's working towards this goal. All right, let's go out to the Mic Drop feature. Let's hear from Andrew.
The overreaction to Jordan Walker this year is just absolutely insane to me. I don't even think the guy has a full season's worth of games under his belt yet, and people are already acting like he's a bust. It's insane to me. He's going to go down just like he did last year. He's going to get his swing right. He's going to come back up and be at minimum as good as he was last year. I don't get it. Any team in the MLB right now would be giving a haul to trade for Jordan Walker, and then when he went on to perform well for those teams, then people would be crying about that as well, just like they're crying about him right now. The dude is 21 years old. People, relax. He's going to be fine.
I completely understand and agree with that because I don't think it's not smart to just start throwing the word bust out for a 21-year-old who's tasted Major League Baseball at-bats in total, 420 of them last year and 58 this year. You got a lot more growing to get into with this certain player. I do just... The scary part with it all is it just feels like, and I wonder if a lot of the frustration from the fans with this Jordan Walker thing is it feels a lot like what's going on in the past. And we discussed this is a totally different scenario in terms of where Jordan Walker is compared to where these other players were. But I always feel like Cardinals fans are always waiting for that next big star to erupt. Ever since the Oscar Taveras passing away, it was always, okay, well, this is our next big guy. Randall Grichuk, this is our next big guy. Tyler O'Neill, this is our next big guy. Nolan Gorman. It kept feeling like the next one was coming, and it never did. And I wonder if there's PTSD from Cardinals fans of like, oh, well, it's just not going to happen with Jordan Walker.
This is the first one that I felt that way about. Those other guys, they weren't significant prospects in Major League Baseball. They were significant prospects for the Cardinals. The only other guy that's been rated highly was Dylan Carlson in terms of national prospects list, right? Alex, when you look at the top 100, I'm not talking about the Cardinals' top 30 prospects because not all top 30s are created equally. When you look at the top 100 prospects list for Major League Baseball, Tyler O'Neill's 40th. When you looked at Randall Grichuk, I don't even know if Randall Grichuk was in the top 50 at any point of his minor league career. Who else did you mention there that were Nolan Gorman? He was in the 30s and 40s on most of those lists. You're talking about guys that are really good prospects. But for the most part, nationally at least, people looked at them and said, probably going to be a good major leaguer. And that was it. That was the end of their hype. And I think locally they became so overly amped up for what those players were going to be because, frankly, they hadn't developed a whole lot of great players internally over the years, that the expectations were just so wildly out of whack with what reality was for those players. There were two guys that got the national attention that we're talking about here with Walker. It was Dylan Carlson and Jordan Walker. And they got the attention for very different reasons. And this is why we can't just look at the list. We also have to read what the prospect analysts are saying about them. The reason why Dylan Carlson was rated so highly on those lists is because he was like a can't miss player. It was like, hey, he's pretty much good at everything. There's really nothing that he doesn't do well. And so it's unlikely that he ends up busting out in the major leagues. People viewed him as, and we talked to people that said this, everyday major leaguer, 15 to 20 home runs, pretty good on base percentage, brings some value defensively and on the bases. Never really going to be a star, though. Nobody ever told us that we talked to nationally, Dylan Carlson's going to be a star. Nobody did. Walker's different, man. This is the first opportunity you've really had for that. Wynn has some of that. We talked to, Kylie McDaniel, who said, I think he could be a star at the shortstop positions. But the guy that we've talked about the most that has this in him is Jordan Walker. I'm going to read you a list of players and what they did through their age 22 seasons when it came to their OPS. We did a little bit of this earlier, but this is just quick, nitty-gritty guys that, Alex, I think you like a lot of these players and what they've done through their age 22 seasons. Jose Ramirez, 644. Ketel Marte, your guy, right? 658. Anthony Volpe, who's been amazing for the Yankees this year, 666 OPS. Byron Buxton, who when healthy is one of the best players in the major leagues, 670 OPS. Nick Castellanos, 695. Nolan Arenado, 705. Xander Bogaerts, 720. Bobby Wood Jr., 720. Luis Robert, who we talked a lot about here in St. Louis as a guy that we would want, 738 OPS through his age 22 season. Jordan Walker, 755. I understand it has not maybe lived up to all of the wildest dreams and expectations of what Walker could have been so far. But, man, Walker's been all right. It's gotten off to a really slow start this year. I think he's still going to be an excellent baseball player as we continue along here. He is so young, man. You look, I saw somebody earlier today mention the Orioles as a team that you can look at and be like, well, their guys are working out. Adley Rutschman didn't reach the big leagues until he was 24. That's 2 years from now for Jordan Walker. Mountcastle spent 3 years as an average hitter, finally is breaking out this year at the age of 25 for the Orioles. Westberg, 24 when he reached the big leagues. That was last year, and he was worse offensively last year than Jordan Walker was last year. So there's a lot that goes into the development at the big league level, and when you're Walker's age, man, it's really hard to be a great hitter this early on in your major league career.
I just, for me, it feels like the development always just gets stalled with the Cardinals to where, like, you see signs of it where you're like, oh, okay, this is what that guy can become. Like Dylan Carlson's a really good example. And yes, the injuries took a toll there, but you always see guys and you see signs of what it could be. And then it feels like it just stalls out and you never get back to that. And then you're always expecting it to go back to that level. And some of that always is on the player. I just don't know who these guys are. Like, we bring that up, but who are we talking about? I mean, and again, I understand you're talking, these guys aren't supposed to be superstars, but you just go through the list of guys that we expected to become mainstays for a Cardinals lineup.
Like,
and
who, though? Like, do you have names
we just
that
did
you're talking
Grichuk,
about?
we did Piscotty, Colton Wong, Tommy Edman, Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, Dylan Carlson, Tyler O'Neill. Yes, but there was no more growth.
But
it got to the level, and then it stopped.
Who did you expect to be more that didn't become that?
I expected them to be mainstays in a Cardinals lineup. I expected them to be guys every single day that were going to be contributors to a team winning. And it never got there.
I just disagree with, like, Colton Wong did become the player that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Randall Grichuk never became that player here or elsewhere. Like, Piscotty never became that player here or elsewhere. Just didn't work for him for whatever reason.
And
Donovan is that guy.
If it didn't work for those guys, that's fine. But it was believed that these were the guys that were going to help the Cardinals stay in a winning place. And it didn't happen. And it just felt like there was always a stopping point where it was like, oh, we see what the ceiling is for these guys, but then we just can't get there. And so we're just going to have to move on from them, and we're going to have to go find the next player.
Want to continue hearing from you guys. The mic drop feature is on the 101 ESPN app. We've got a bunch of these pouring in. We'll get to them next here on 101 ESPN.
as a fan, you want the Cardinals win, but with Mozeliak and all the, stupidity that's going on, they need to make changes because Mozeliak thinks this is a retirement home. Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, Matt Carpenter, Brandon Crawford, and Sonny Gray's up there too, but he's still young. But they're not making any big changes. They're making little changes that might look better, but they don't at all. And nothing's changing. Our winning is not going up. Honestly, I think we're worse than last year. I think the only reason we're looking better this year is because the pitching has been a little bit better, but that's not sustainable at all.
He's bad. He's big mad. That was Tristan on the Mic Drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. If you guys want to get yours in, you can do that right now. How you feeling about the 2024 St. Louis Cardinals? We'll just open it up to that. That's essentially what we're talking about today. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. He brought up Kyle Gibson, who right now in the first inning, he loaded the bases before recording an out, and then, credit where it's due, got out of a bases-loaded jam while allowing just one run. It's a hell of a job by my guy, Kyle Gibson. Gibby, for
What's
sure.
What's the thing you always say to, polish the turd of the offense of, they may not be hitting with runners in scoring position, but at least they're getting them on.
Well, they're not doing that right now, unfortunately.
Well, it doesn't feel sustainable for Linda Gibson to always be loading the bases up like this.
It's not.
Granted, I heard Match had his best outing of the year yesterday.
Technically, it's like a goaltender seeing 15 saves in the first 2 minutes. You want your goaltender to feel hot. Gibson just got through it. Now he's going to run.
He is
I heard
ready
the
to
fast
go.
line yesterday. Lance Lynn, I thought it was a great comparison. He just goes out there, says, let me get into the bar fight real quick, and then I'll sit down and drink my beer for the rest of the game. It's essentially what he did. Maybe Kyle Gibson said, I would like to try that out this time. He's been trying it out a little too often for my liking, but, that's where we're at. Okay, let's get back to the Mic Drop feature because we want to hear from you guys today. Mic Drop features on the 101 ESPN app. T-Bone, let's hear from Alexi on the Cardinals development.
What Jordan Walker needs to do ASAP is put Albert Pujols on the line, get him down to Memphis, and help him get his swing together because this front office has absolutely no idea who to hire to help a hitter develop. We can't develop a hitter, okay? It's been years. And now Jordan Walker's going down for the second time in 2 years in April. It's a joke. This development, the staff is a joke. Ali Marmol is a joke. I'm sick of it. Let's get Albert Pujols to help Jordan Walker because clearly no one in this organization can. I'm tired of it.
I mean, we've had these conversations a ton of times. We've had multiple former hitting and pitching coaches on, and we've asked them bluntly, what does your job entail?
What would you say you do here?
What would you say that you do here? And all of them, I forget who we talked to, but it was the former hitting coach with the Miami Marlins, and he basically said, we're motivational speakers. It's all we do is we try and keep guys in a better mood, so when they go through ruts, they get out of them faster. So to sit there and say we need to get Albert Pujols in here, that's fine, but if the player still stays in that mode, that mentality, it's not going to make a difference. Ali Marmol, you can point fingers at and say it's his fault. You did the same thing with Mike Schilt. Frankly, and this is an odd thing to say right now, but the guy that actually fixed it was ran out of town because fans didn't like him very much.
Say his name.
Jeff
Say
Albert.
it. Yeah.
Jeff Albert. Poor Jeff Albert.
Take that, Cardinals fans.
The man left to go to the New York Mets because he was getting bullied by Cardinals fans.
Turner Ward is one of Paul Goldschmidt's best friends. He's the guy that worked with him in Arizona. He's working with him here.
He's the guy that Cardinals fans were clamoring for when Jeff Albert was here because he was old school.
Correct. So you've got that guy. They had Albert Pujols in the dugout while some of their development, by the way, didn't go super well at times in 2022 either. He was a player for them, not a coach, but he was there.
Look, he was paid to be a coach.
Guys, it's saying on the coaching staff.
All of the hitting coaches have told us, even Eduardo Perez is yeah, you work on swings, but this is about the player finding a way to get out of it.
People want Stubby Clapp to be the manager. I've heard that. Well, he's part of the coaching staff right now. So if you want him to be the manager, shouldn't he be helping with the stuff that's going on right now? He's a first base coach, but
well, it's not his place.
Tell me what the first base coach responsibilities are other than, being at first base while you're at home. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. He's a coach. He's an assistant coach. Pop Warner, people think that he's pretty decent at his job, or at least have in the past. He's a coach. You have Willie McGee on this coaching staff. I would say Willie McGee's a pretty good baseball guy. Like
They have every former Cardinal Hall of Famer at spring training, all spring training long, working with these guys.
Except for Yachty.
Well, he's working from remote.
Not a Cardinals Hall of Famer yet. He doesn't fall into that.
He's remotely working.
I don't think this is a coaching issue right now. I think that the players are not executing. Let's go back out to the mic drop feature via the 101 ESPN app. Let's hear from Clayton.
Yeah, BK, you hit it right on the head. It's nice to see them win every now and again, but at the same time, you want this team to be actually competitive and actually good. This ownership is convinced that they are a competitive team that can go out and win a World Series, and their philosophy states that. They're not trying to rebuild. They're afraid to see that they need to rebuild. They need to take a 3-year period and reanalyze everything that they've done in the past 5 to 7 years because it's not working. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty common consensus that a lot of people want to see the Cardinals crash and burn, myself included, but only so that they can kind of get reborn and be better again.
Like a phoenix from the ashes.
Yes. That's right.
We all want to be Mark Stone.
Who's the team that you guys would point to that had success doing what Clayton just talked about?
Rebuild.
Yeah.
Houston,
Atlanta, the Cubs in that one stretch of time.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call the Cubs this. I mean, I know you got a World Series and another appearance out of it, but you did that so it would be sustained, and it was not sustained.
So Houston is the team that we're going to point to, right?
Yeah.
Be more like the Dodgers.
Here is what Houston did from 2007 to 2014 in terms of wins. 73, 86, 74, 76, 56, 55, 51, 70. Then 86 lost in the ALDS. 84 did not make the playoffs. Finally, 2017, a decade later, it all came together, won the World Series, 100 games, and they've been great ever since. So from 2017 to 2023, arguably the most successful team in Major League Baseball. I'm genuinely asking, are people good with going through, let's say you cut off half of that. For the next 5 years, you win somewhere between 50 and 70 games every single season. If on the other end, I tell you, you're going to be really good. I'm not telling you you're going to win a World Series, but you're going to get through it. You're going to rebuild. You're going to get the players. You're going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. I don't know what happens from there. I can't tell you what happens in the postseason because baseball's a crapshoot in the postseason. But if I tell you right now, for the next 5 years, you have to win somewhere between 55 and 70 games. Are we signing up for that? Because I am not. I'm not willing to go through that kind of hurt. It sucks to not have a team to talk about in St. Louis where we don't have football to rely on.
Whoa.
In Houston, I'm being honest. In Houston, they have the Texans, dude. They could talk about the Texans all summer long. Training camp, OTAs, the draft. You got stuff. We've got the Blues. Yeah, we've got the Battlehawks, sure. But, like, dude, the Cardinals are the talk of the town here in St. Louis. And to not have anything worth even mentioning, because if you go that route, the players on the team don't matter. Trade everybody. It's Buddy Kennedy. It's Brandon Crawford starting every day. You got Jose Fermin up here. Like, it's dudes you don't want to see play baseball, and their results do not matter for 5 years from now. It's not like the Blues where you're starting to see it. That doesn't happen for another 3 years. We good with that? Because I'm not. I don't want to do that.
Absolutely not. And I think anybody who says, yeah, I would take that so that I could be good for 6, 7, 8 years, you're fooling yourself because you're going to be miserable for 10 years. It's like what we talk about with this rebuild with the Blues. Like, you're going to be miserable for 6 or 7 years, which is probably going to draw you away as a fan until you get back to that point. The part for me, I feel like the Cardinals are stuck in between, though. Like, it feels like that they don't want to rebuild, but we also don't want to spend or trade assets to get better faster. And it feels like you're stuck in the middle of, well, we'll just kind of recycle this until we get these guys ready to go. And to Clayton, was that his?
Yeah.
To Clayton's point, I feel like you got to pick a lane. You got to pick a lane of what you want to do rather than bringing in the Lance Lynns and the Kyle Gibsons and saying, well, we're just waiting for Tin Kents and TK Roby to get ready so that they can take us off to the next level.
I think that the issue for the Cardinals, do I want to see them rebuild? No, but I do think they are stuck in the middle. And
I agree with that.
I think what you have to do then is you almost have to do a retool. And I think that's where the Cardinals are trending towards.
But
I don't think
be
this
aggressive.
this was an attempt to win what this offseason
And
was.
if you're retooling, I feel like you got to like be aggressive in the sense of like, let's do this faster. Let's go get a stud player available and try and reset this.
I think you got to do one of two.
They've done that.
I think you've got to become more aggressive and actually get the piece that you're missing. Now, granted, again, the offense not hitting has been a big surprise. Like, I don't know if they could have prepared for that. But again, I still have some faith that the offense is going to start hitting. And if that's the case, we all know what they're missing currently. They're missing pitching still. They didn't push for the number 2, which we talked about on Monday or Tuesday of this week. But I think what a lot of fans, based on what we're hearing, I think they keep saying they want to see a rebuild. I think what they really want is to see a retool and a regime change. I think that's what they want to see. I think they want to see whoever it is that takes over for John Mozeliak to kind of retool this on the fly and suffer like 3-year stretch of let the young guys play. Why did they send Jordan Walker down today? Yes, it's because the offense is struggling as a whole, but it's, hey, they're still trying to win, so they had to send Jordan Walker down. If you're a team that's in a retool, and this is why I would push back on what you said, BK, if this kind of is a retool, I don't think you send down Jordan Walker. Jordan Walker stays up here, continues to work with the major league staff, and tries to figure things out.
That's what this is. This is a competitive retool. It's why Zach Bolduc was held out of the lineup a few times this year when they went to 11-7 because they were still trying to win.
Terrible decision still.
Fair. I agree with you because I think they're closer to a rebuild than a retool or a competitive, whatever you want to call it, for the Blues. Like, I think they're closer to that side of things. But the Blues,
I think the Cardinals might be too, though. If these guys don't pan out the way you thought they were, I think.
Agreed. This year will determine that, right? Yeah. Like, we're about to find out. This year for the Cardinals could be what the 2022 season was for the Blues, where they had all those guys on the one-year deals, and by the time you got to the deadline, you knew, we all knew, it was time to admit, all right, this is the end of this winning window, and we've got to find a way to build the next one. That's where the Cardinals are at right now, and that's how they built the roster this offseason. That's why I am, like, I believe they're not caught in between. I think they knew this could be that year. That's why you go give a 1-year contract to Kyle Gibson and to Lance Lynn. That's why you let Paul Goldschmidt come back on the 1-year deal and not extend him as well. They can transition this thing pretty quickly into a retool if they want to by the deadline.
And you ask the question, if fans are rooting against this team, I think the point you just made is why fans are rooting against this team. Because there was no upfront with what you just said of like, yeah, we're giving this a 1-year trial run to see. They sold it as, which they've sold the last 2 years as, no, we still believe we can win a World Series, but we got to get there first. Whereas I think if the tone was a little bit different in the offseason of like, hey, we realize that this isn't working right now. We're relying on these future players to be a big piece of this puzzle.
Well, what I'm saying is I don't think they're there yet. I think they wanted to see this first and to see it through to find out what does it look like? Because they needed the young guys to come through this year. They need Jordan Walker to hit. They need Nolan Gorman to hit. They need Nootbaar and Donovan to be the players that they believe they're capable of becoming. And if they don't, and so far this year they haven't, then they're going to have to get to a retool.
But if you believed you were going to be there this year, sorry to interrupt, wouldn't you have been more aggressive this offseason and finding another?
To do what?
To trade for
and I'm talking about it from their
Cease?
perspective. Like, I agree with you.
To trade for a Dylan Cease to make the starting pitching look a lot more dangerous?
Well, can you imagine this offense without some of the guys that we're talking about? Like, it wouldn't have changed anything is what we've now learned. Their offense is awful. Their offense is the reason why they're at where they are. The pitching, while it hasn't been great, has been mostly fine this year. The offense is the problem. The bottom fell out from underneath it. And so whoever they put into the rotation this past offseason, what we're learning quickly, it would have failed so far this year. And that's not a reason not to do it. I said all offseason, I think they should have done those things that you're talking about, Alex, is go get one more pitcher because you don't have a number 2. But I think their plan, agree with it or disagree with it, was let's see what this looks like for the first couple of months. We believe we can at least be stable. We can be a solid team. And then, as we get closer to the deadline, we can reassess things. We can go out there and acquire that pitcher that you're talking about, Alex. We can acquire a hitter if that's what we need at the deadline. And then we can get to 90 wins and get to the postseason. Nobody likes that plan until it works. And suddenly when it works, it's 2011, it's 2006, et cetera. It's last year's Diamondbacks. It's the year before that. What we saw from the Phillies, it's the Nationals, it's the Braves from the year before that. Like, we've seen it work a number of times. So I say all of that to say this. Like, I think that this was the only plan that they had available to them this year, unless they went out and made an aggressive move for one of those starting pitchers. I would have done that, but it would have failed as well. All right, coming up next, we'll hear more from you coming up here on 101 ESPN. Alex, if you're looking to place a bet on the NHL's playoffs, the place to do so is Circa Sports in Illinois. They are the biggest sports book in Las Vegas, and now they're available to you, the sports bettor, in the state of Illinois. So download the app today, and when you do so, you're going to be getting all of the best odds over there on the Circa Sportsbook in Illinois. If you want to bet on the Boston Bruins, for example, tonight, if you did so over on the FanDuel Sportsbook, you'd be placing a minus 105 odds. So if you bet $100 or $105, you'd win 100. So you have to place more money down there. On the Circa Sports app, it's even money. So you're going to be getting more money back if and when your bet wins. If you were to place a bet as well on the LA Kings on the money line, plus 165. Bet $100, you win 165. Over on FanDuel, it's plus 150. You're just winning more money whenever you bet over on Circa.
BK, I'm calling tonight my underdog parlay. I'm taking all underdogs, and if I do it on DraftKings, it's plus 1843. If I do it on the Circa Sports Illinois app, plus 2250. Use the app that is giving you the most money possible. Download the Circa Sports app today. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Terry Hurd with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals currently taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks as they look to try and win the series. This is the rubber match. Jordan Montgomery's on the mound for Arizona. Kyle Gibson's on the mound for St. Louis. Arizona leads it 1-0 in the top of the third. The Sports Update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, we're hearing from you today in the 12 o'clock hour. Where are you at on the St. Louis Cardinals? We've heard from people that are rooting actively against the team because they want to see some change within the organization. We've talked a lot about the Jordan Walker situation. He was sent down earlier today to AAA to get himself back on track offensively. They decided to call up Jose Fermin for that roster spot, so we've heard about that as well. And then just generally speaking, what the future holds for this organization. So we're hearing continuously from you throughout the day today via the Mic Drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. T-Bone, let's hear from Nick on where he stands right now with the Cardinals.
My macro view of the Cardinals is that they are a dumpster full of wood about to be set on fire. When you're talking about Mo earlier and having to have, building a roster that can have 5 years of losing so they can get better, I think that that's the roster that they have in place. They've proven to be inept at coaching and developing the talent that they have, and anybody that's good, they trade away. They seem like they can't handle the mental aspect of this side of the game, whether it be Flaherty or O'Neill or Tommy Pham. All those guys are doing well elsewhere again. It's just, I think that they need a complete overhaul from the Pobo all the way down. And, yeah, if they got to lose for 5 years, then so be it, because I hope the next guy that comes in can actually set them up for success long term, because this has been a long time coming with Mo's management, that this is exactly what was going to happen. It was going to turn into a dumpster fire with all the horrendous decisions that he's made.
Dumpster fire full of wood. I like that. I go back to that Al Avila quote that we had, I guess it was like 6 months ago, talking about, like, if you don't know your players better than other teams do, then you've got a problem. And coming from Nick's point of view, it sounds like he believes that that is one of the biggest issues. And, since we're on the topic, like, for me, I think a lot of people view me as a Cardinals hater and that I just don't like this team. I grew up loving this team. But over the last 3 to 4 years, I've grown a distaste for the Cardinals, mostly because of John Mozeliak. I think the message that he relays to the fans is not portrayed the way that the fans feel. I think it's coming out very snooty, to the sense of, it's like, well, I know what I'm doing and you'll see it once it works. But the problem is it has not worked in the last 4 seasons. And then it's the same message every offseason, to where it's, well, we believe we're good enough, and yes, the payroll's going to raise, but we're going to allocate it elsewhere. Yes, we need pitching. It just feels like the distaste towards the Cardinals right now is mostly because the people do not believe in this front office and finding a way to turn it around.
And I think they've earned that. I think they've earned that distrust, distaste, and frustration, honestly, from you, the paying customer. Right? They've earned that over the past couple of seasons, especially. I do want to push back against one thing that Nick said there, and it's his opinion. He's more than welcome to have it. He said that the roster they have right now is already a rebuild roster. That I'm not going to agree with. If you want to go into a full-blown rebuild, what we're talking about, Alex, you need to get yourself into the top 3 in the Major League Baseball draft, and that means winning between 55 and 60 games. The roster that you have to be is the Rockies or the White Sox or the Oakland Athletics. That's a roster that gets you to where the Cardinals would want to go. And that means trading Jordan Walker. That means trading Nolan Gorman. That means trading absolutely Brendan Donovan and trading Sonny Gray after the season, because they're guys that help you too much. They're too good. You can't have them around. Like Wilson Contreras, you got to go, dude. You hit too well. They can't allow for that. You need guys that are going to actively take you to the bottom of the standings, which means signing more pitchers like Steven Matz and Kyle Gibson and guys that'll, like, just take off some of the strain from your bullpen. Like, go get worse versions of that. Go out there, like, make a trade this offseason for what's his face from Washington, Patrick Corbin. Like, those are the kinds of guys that you go out there and you make the moves for. The Cardinals are still too good. And I know that feels crazy to say given what it feels like watching them right now. They're too good to be a true rebuild team. All right, let's hear from John as well on where he's at with the Cardinals.
The point that Andy Van Slyke, Cruz, Arozarena, Garcia, Thomas, none of those players took off until they were 24, 25, 26 years old. Yet you've already labeled Dylan Carlson, who happened to play hurt with a bad ankle and a bad wrist, a bust. The whole thing is that John Mozeliak has rushed Carlson, Walker, Gorman, Herrera. He had to send Herrera back down. Hicks. He was patient with Wynn. He rushed all those guys to the majors. None of them are 24 years old, and they're all struggling. This is another Mo screw-up.
Just trying to figure out how he got Andy Van Slyke at the beginning of that and then got all these guys in, like, the 2020s.
So record memory book.
I actually do think he has a point, but it's not something that Cardinals fans would like anyways. The Cardinals fans were mad when Victor Scott was sent down. That was rushing him. Bringing him up to the big leagues right now is rushing Victor Scott. Seeing Mason win, we all wanted to see him earlier than what they ultimately brought him up last year. But when they got to him to bring him up at that point in time, it's not rushing him, but it's continuously pushing the progression in a meaningful way, right? We were mad when they didn't bring Dylan Carlson with them immediately on the roster, like back in 2020, and eventually they did, but that was pushing his progress in a meaningful way. Last year, people were upset at the thought that they wouldn't bring Jordan Walker with them on opening day. So I do agree with him that the Cardinals have pushed these guys in a way that, looking back, maybe they did push them too fast and too hard to the big leagues, but I think we all agreed with it at the time. It was kind of hard to not push them the way that they did.
It's because Cardinals fans were desperate to see something else. And maybe that's just the problem on the Cardinals with these stopgap players like the Mason Wynn. We were desperate to see Mason win because people were sick of seeing Paul DeJong and Taylor Motter in the lineup. And they were like, we got to put why not put a Mason Wynn in the lineup when you're watching that over and over and over? I don't really remember what that outfield looked like before we were clamoring to get Dylan Carlson up here. If I'm not mistaken, it was Bader.
Fowler, Bader, and
Pham?
No, he wasn't here in 2020. I can't remember what the exact.
I don't remember what that outfield was. But, like, the point I'm making is Cardinals fans, and I'm included with this, it feels like you want to see these players faster because the stopgaps you have are the same. It's kind of like retreading the same players. Like, we've done this already. We've done this enough. We know who this is. There's no development here. There's no upside here. Why not develop that player at the major league level?
O'Neal was the other one.
O'Neal was the other one?
A part of that outfield. Like, I hear you. It's all fair points, but that's going to be what it is if you go into a rebuild.
Oh, the rebuild, it's even worse.
You're going to have guys at the big league level that you want no part of. Like, you have no interest in watching, and so people will just actively tune out Cardinals baseball.
And we talked about this with Doug Armstrong, and I know it's a different sport, but like when I asked Doug Wade about rebuilding versus retooling, he's like, you don't understand. When you rebuild, you have an entire roster that doesn't know what it means to win. Yeah. And he's like, you not only have to develop those players, you have to develop a winning mindset. And if the players don't know how to win, they're not going to develop their own talents because they're frustrated they're losing all the time.
I think the hard part for me, and I'm bringing my own baggage into this, right? I grew up, as people know, a Royals fan. So I watched a team that went through the rebuild. The problem is, like, when the rebuild doesn't work, you start a new rebuild. And each rebuild takes 3 to 5 years. And my entire childhood was spent overhauling the last rebuild for the next rebuild. So from the time when I was a kid, like 2004, they had a good season, until 2014, 92 to 2014, I can remember like 1 or 2 good seasons. And when I say good seasons, I'm talking about like 82 wins. You don't want to be that team. And I don't think you'll become that team necessarily here in St. Louis. I think there's too much pride. There's too much history. It's too storied of a franchise to do it. But, man, it's happened to other franchises where they try to go this path and then they just get stuck. And to try to get out of it is every bit as hard, and I would say harder, than to try to get out of what you're doing right now.
Look at what the Pirates are doing. Pirates, I mean, they started this rebuild, 8 years ago.
The difference is they don't spend. Like the Cardinals, to get out of the rebuild, can manufacture a little bit by spending.
The Tigers are the team.
The Tigers are the team that I would point to say, like, man, they should be better than this. It was supposed to be better than this.
They're on their second rebuild, essentially. That's what the Tigers are on. But
the White Sox.
Yeah, Reinsdorf, whew, that's bad ownership. Pirates, to your point, that's bad ownership. I will say this, though, and I know BK's not going to like this because he pushed back on them being in a retool now.
Home runs don't matter.
I wonder, I'm genuinely curious. I wonder if Cardinals fans have felt like they've been in a retool since 2020. That 2020 team was not good. 2021 was not good until they won like 18 games in a row. And again, like when we talk about pushing prospects, I think retool. Like I think, and this is where we differ on the Blues, and we've talked about this a lot. I think the Blues are going to be worse next year. Why? Because I think they're going to be playing the kids. They're going to be pushing a Bolduc. They're going to be pushing a Zach Dean next season, pushing the younger guys, just like the Cardinals pushed Carlson in 2020. The 2021 team was not a very good team, except they got hot at the right time. 2022, that might be the exception, but they had a lot of holes in that roster as well, looking at the pitching staff. 2023, the bottom falls out from under them, and they bring up a Mason Winner late in the season. They rush a Jordan Walker to the big leagues. And once again this season, I don't think they're a very good team. They are a stuck in the middle 80 to 85 win team that if you want to call it a retool or not, I personally don't think it is because they haven't been operating like it's a retool. They pushed another prospect. They pushed a Victor Scott. They pushed Jordan Walker again, and it didn't work for them, and they've both had to go back down. So I wonder if some of the frustration from Cardinals when they say rush prospects feel like they're stuck in the middle, and all of that is totally fair. I think Cardinals fans feel like they've been in a retool for the last 5 years that's gone nowhere.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. The Junk Drawer coming up next. All right, let's dive into the junk drawer. T-Bone, what do you got for us today?
Guys, you guys ever been on a cruise ship?
Oh, that's funny. We're actually planning a cruise trip for next January.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, we went on one and we'll never go again. My wife spent the entire cruise ship in her room vomiting.
That's tough, man.
Have you ever been on a yacht?
I have not. I know that surprises
surprising.
some people. Yeah.
That's surprising.
Witty-twitty BK. Never been on a yacht. No, I haven't.
I've been on a Jefferson County yacht.
That's a thing?
Speedboat.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. We had one of those growing up.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah. Well,
don't look at me that way,
guys,
man. You know what it is.
They are working on the next best thing for us billionaire radio hosts.
Sure.
It is a yacht. It's a super yacht that's also a submarine.
Oh,
That will cost $2 billion as the starting price. It is a yacht that is can go 820 feet beneath the ocean surface and remain submerged for 4 weeks.
Didn't we just do this and didn't it implode underwater?
Yeah, it wasn't.
This is a really big yacht.
Yeah, okay, cool. So that's just more people.
I guess my question, why do you need this?
Why do you need to go underwater for 4 weeks?
Why not? I would just stay at one of those hotels that is underwater, rather than get a whole yacht boat that is like a super sub. Honestly, I think it's kind of cool. If I had $2 billion to spend, I might get one. Just because it sounds awesome. Now, granted, I don't feel that safe about it, but
I just would do so many different things with $2 billion. You
can have up to 12 guests.
There's just so many other ways you can have all of these things, but without paying $2 billion for a yacht. I could just go get a yacht. That's part one.
Or go get a submarine.
And because I have a yacht, I have the money, I would assume, to go get one of those super cool things that are like the mini submarines where you just go down and explore for a couple of hours and then come back up to the surface where I have my yacht.
Or just go take scuba diving lessons and figure out how to scuba dive. It's the same. Is that a big thing that people really are desperate to go that deep into the ocean?
Apparently.
I don't. Maybe it's like a lion roaring. Maybe you got to see it once. I don't have that.
It probably is just like a lion roaring.
I don't have that much interest to go underwater that deep. I'm good.
I wouldn't mind one.
I'll watch a documentary on Disney Plus about oceans, and I'm fine.
There we go. He's Tanner Hendrickson. He's buying a yacht.
That's
Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon.
I got the money for it. Build a new stadium, man.
Coming up next.
Forgot.
I'm going to do dealer's choice here. You guys get one of the three. You tell me which one.
Is it a Freedom Friday?
Yeah, it's Freedom Wednesday over here. We can talk about the Steven Matz experience that took place last night.
It was fun.
Hear from Ollie Marmol.
It was fun.
We could do our grade for Doug Armstrong, or we can do some NFL takeaways leading into this year's draft.
You really are doing it. Do you want to put a poll out?
What do you want to go with?
I want to talk about Matz. Just because the post game was.
I actually think we're on such a good roll right now talking about how much fun we're having with the Cardinals. Let's talk about Matz.
All right, we're talking about the Cardinals. You get to hear Ollie Marmol say that Steven Matz was at his best last night. Next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about Rhino Shield. When it comes to the exterior of your home, it's time to give it an upgrade, and you need to use the best, and that is Rhino Shield. Why not use something that has been featured multiple times on HGTV? This old house, it's an A+ on the Better Business Bureau, and what they do is significantly better than just any old paint that you're going to buy from a hardware store, because it's a 2 to 3 coating process that sticks to whatever type of surface you have on the exterior longer and stronger than any other type of paint. If you've got aluminum, if you've got block, if you've got brick, hardy plank, if you've got asbestos, all of it will stick to the siding of your home. Plus, it's 100% waterproof. It deflects 90% of the UV rays. It is backed by a 25-year transferable warranty. That's how confident they are with their product. So give Darren a call today. Have him come out, give you a free quote, take a look at your house. He even suggested the type of paint color we wanted for our home, and my wife is obsessed with it. Give him a call today, 877-25-RHINO, or check him out online, 877-25RHINO.com.
was a rough night for Steven Matz. Hard to say anything else.
Didn't you hear Ollie?
You look back at it, his box score, 4 1/3 innings, 6 hits, not terrible. 3 walks,
not
a
terrible.
home run,
not terrible.
7 earned runs. His ERA on the season is up to 5.6. So after the game, naturally, Ollie Marmol was asked about Steven Matz, the outing that he had, gave up 6 hits, 3 walks. So that's 9 base runners over the course of, 4 1/3 innings. About a 2 whip, not what you want against a team like that. Ollie, what'd you think about your starter tonight?
I actually thought it was one of his better outings, to be quite honest with you. The line doesn't show that, but from a pitch standpoint, Vila was there, walking the 9-hole in that inning. That kind of led to some runs, wasn't ideal, but Walker took a good swing off of him for the most part. I thought he actually did a pretty decent job. Didn't go our way.
This is like the goaltender that gives up 5 goals in the third period, but it's like, man, he looked good in the first 2 periods, stopping 25 shots. It's just those 5 shots that he gave up 5 goals on.
What'd you guys make of that?
Yeah, big swing and a miss right there. Not what Matt's got last night.
I don't think he has a
comment.
I don't think he's got. That was good.
Thank you.
I don't think he's got a good grasp on how the fan base is feeling right now to come out. That was Mike Schilt-esque following. I don't know, man. Following a loss and being like, boy, we scratched and clawed our way through that one. Or Matt Carpenter's making really good contact.
Or he's a major league pitcher.
Yeah, we got to celebrate everything that Matt Carpenter does.
So
this is pretty bad. Schilt was bad too. You remember you got into a fight with him.
I remember. Yep, I'm vaguely familiar. Can I give the context?
Really?
What I thought happened here?
Cool. Yeah, we totally need an Ollie moderator right now.
Ollie translation go.
I think what he was trying to say.
I agree with him.
No, I don't think he was very good last night.
What gave that away? The 7 earned runs or the
now
you know how
6 hits?
We get into it sometimes, Alex, about the process versus the results,
3
right?
walks.
How you judge the process, not the results, and you judge the results, not the process sometimes, right? Starting point there?
Felt like a tone problem, but go for it.
No, it's just a fundamental disagreement between the two of us. It's fine. Like, I think Ollie's trying to do the process thing here that I sometimes do that gets me in trouble because I'm like, yeah, he gave up 44 home runs, but look at how many innings he pitched.
Home runs don't matter, T-Bone.
I know. Idiot.
There's nothing process-wise I could point to yesterday. I'd be like, but look at this.
Look at Velo.
He just wasn't very good.
Like Velo.
He got
the exit
4
Velo.
swings and misses on 44 swings. It's a 9% whiff rate. That's horrible. No matter who he's going up against, that's really bad. And so, and I don't know what this says about their rotation right now, or I guess maybe we do, and it's not great. I think what Ollie was trying to say there is, yeah, that's the best that Steven Matz can do against that lineup. Like, if we had a really good lefty, like if Jordan Montgomery, who was on the mound for the Diamondbacks today, was a part of the Cardinals rotation and he had the exact same results, I think Ollie would have said something very differently after the game. I do not think he would have given you the same assessment, despite going up against the exact same lineup that Steven Matz did yesterday. I think what he's saying is, that's who Matz is. He's going to give up a lot of hits. He's going to give up a lot of runs. When he goes up against a bunch of right-handed hitters, they're going to get a lot of hits against him. And there's nothing that I can really do as a manager to change that. And so what you saw today, in his opinion, is pretty much the best version of Steven Matz.
You know what would have been good? He used that line instead of, I actually think he looked good.
But he can't say that, because if he says that, now he's going to get crushed from the fans. He's going to get crushed either way, but now he's going to lose his player as well.
He should start going no comment for his press conferences.
Essentially. But now he's going to
say something.
Now he's got to go back into the clubhouse, and Steven Matz going to be sitting there saying, "Why are you saying that I suck?"
They could look him in the eyes and go, "You saw that, right?"
If you don't believe me, Matz, go check the stat line.
Right-handed hitters are batting .335 against him this year, with a slugging percentage approaching .500. He's not wrong. Like, this is who Steven Matz is, and I think that's really the heart of the issue here. Is I think if all he had is druthers, he would like to have a new option to be at that spot in the rotation.
I've heard Zach Thompson could be a starter.
Guys, who are you starting?
I've heard Zach Thompson could be a starter.
Cardinals have 4 starters currently.
Yeah.
That's the honest truth about it. Well, hold on, let me look. Okay, Gibson has to give it any more. Yeah, they got 4 starters right now in their rotation. And Matz is a guy that when he is right, is legitimately good. And we saw that in the first, 2 starts, 3 starts?
But it only happens for a small increment of a season.
And that's what I expect from a number 4 or 5 starter. Like, he is Brandon fought for the Arizona Diamondbacks except left-handed. Like, he's got swing and miss when he's right, and when he's wrong, it is not pretty. And that's what you saw last night was a not good start. You're right, BK. Like, I don't want to really crush Ollie because I think he could have set a little bit better of a line, but he's not going to come out and just say his player sucks. There was not much he could do there, and I think they are at a spot in which right now Matz is going through another one of those ruts. They have 4 starters, and they don't have options in the minor leagues. Drew Rom was supposed to be
which
their
is also
6th
concerning.
starter.
Not good. That should not be. Remember when we talked to Gersh and he brought up, like, hey, last year we had guys that were starting games that weren't big leaguers?
Yeah, I thought he was talking about Rom.
I did too. But then you hear Mo every time he's asked to speak of, hey, who are your depth options? Well, it's Drew Rom and it's Zach Thompson. Well, we've seen Zach Thompson. That hasn't gone super well. And Drew Rom is going down to a doctor that specializes in Tommy John surgery, which doesn't seem like a great omen for what his future holds with the Cardinals for the foreseeable future. I don't know what you do. You just keep throwing him out there, dude. And this is your 5th starter, and you hope that it goes better the next time that he goes out there. And, like, should you believe that's going to change? I don't think so. I think you kind of expect that when he's going up against a lineup full of right-handed hitters. It's not great, man. It's not great. So to explain away why Ollie said what he did last night, I think he's really sending a message of, dude, this is what we got.
Oh, man.
And I don't know what more I can do with this, but
and it can't be
that was a good version of Steven Matz.
Can't be too public about it because you saw what happened to Shelby.
I was just going to say, so basically he's letting it known that we need more talent, and that was philosophical differences
to be fair,
last time.
though, Ollie finally got what he wanted in the bullpen this offseason. I mean, I
took 4 years to get there.
I got that guy was going to cry when we'd go, what do you need your bullpen? I could use swing and miss, man. And he finally got it. And now I think BK's 100% right. I think he's basically trying to say, like, look, man, this is the roster we got, and I'm doing what I can. Now it's more on the players. So if you guys want to point fingers, look, I'll be the fall guy because that's actually my job is to be the fall guy and relay information. Really, who should be pointing the fingers at is the players that aren't doing their job.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. That's Alex
Ferrario.
Who
gave that money out.
And I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get to our grade for Doug Armstrong for this past season. But next, NFL quick hitters, including some of the wild stuff that could happen in this year's NFL draft. I don't remember the last time I was this amped up about a draft that is going to take place. We're a little more than 24 hours away. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care. I was texting with Phil, one of the managers over at Classic Air Care, about the maintenance program that I'm a part of and the service that I have their technician coming out to take care of. And he said he's starting to see a ton of uptick in the maintenance programs because a lot of people are falling into the category like I am, older unit, don't have the money to spend on an HVAC system, so they're trying to make the best out of what they have. And let me tell you something, Classic Air Care has made my 26-year-old unit last for the last 3 years. I had a old unit also in my previous home that lasted the entire time that we owned that home because of Classic Air Care and their maintenance program. But what I love about them is the honesty that I get with their technicians. These guys are professionals. They know exactly what they're talking about. I've had them come out and walk me through what the process is of purchasing a new HVAC system, and they've told me and explained, what you need, what you don't need, what's just that shiny new toys that don't really make a difference. I get the honesty from Classic Air Care. They have 18-month 0% financing options for you when you purchase an HVAC system, use the company that I trust that the Ferrario family has been using for 40-plus years, and that is Classic Air Care, who have been making people comfortable since 1926. Classic Air Care, that's classicaircare.com.
All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters. I was telling the guys during the break, and they didn't seem to enjoy my enthusiasm. I haven't been this excited about an NFL draft in a really long time. It's certainly not because my Chiefs are drafting high. They're drafting at 32 because they're the back-to-back defending Super Bowl champion, baby. We're trying to get a three-peat here, and that's exciting. And for the rest of the draft, you get to look at the top 3, top 4, maybe even top 5 picks. Quarterbacks could be coming off the board early. There's 3 elite-level wide receivers in this class. It's a really intriguing draft with a lot of moving around that could take place on Thursday night. So let's dive into it. There's a new piece that came out on Sports Illustrated. This comes from Albert Breer, who's one of the better insiders in the NFL. He wrote the following. If there are 2 curveball quarterback teams, they could be the Atlanta Falcons and the Los Angeles Rams. Atlanta went to Seattle to work out Penix and has a visit planned with J.J. McCarthy. Sitting there at 8, either of those could fall right into the lap of the Atlanta Falcons. When you look at the Rams, quote, I've actually heard them connected to Bo Nix. The Oregon quarterback's father was Les Snead's teammate at Auburn in the 1990s. Baby! Okay. Let's start with the Rams. We'll get to the Falcons, who I find to be a little bit more interesting.
What are you talking about, man?
I absolutely believe the Rams could take a quarterback in this year's class. It would not surprise me at all. And I think T-Bone's been pushing back against this to guard against himself from the reality that his team might be taking a quarterback in the first round for the first time since the last time they took a quarterback in the first round.
Les, would you please just trade that pick?
Jared Goff.
Spend it on a quarterback.
No, I changed my mind. I don't want to watch the first round anymore. Trade the pick.
Are you looking forward to Bo Nix as the next Rams quarterback?
No, they should not waste a pick, especially their first round pick, on a quarterback. If there's a defensive edge there that they like or a defensive tackle there that they like, they should use that. If there isn't, get that pick the hell out of town and don't waste it on a quarterback. I hate when teams do this. You have a franchise quarterback? Yeah. Well, do you want to build a roster around him? Yeah. All right, so what are you going to pick in the first round? A quarterback.
No, man.
No. Use it on an asset. When Stafford retires, you know what you are, whether you have the backup in place or not, you are bleeped. So you're going to have down years. So don't waste the pick on a quarterback when you have the franchise guy. I'm going to lose my ish, guys, on Friday if they pick a quarterback with this first-round pick.
I think you're looking at it all wrong, man. You got to plan for the next wave.
I mean, they're going to do what the Packers did.
Yeah, a lot of teams have success with that.
You put them in place for 3 years.
Jordan Love. became a really good quarterback after Aaron Rodgers left, and they're hoping to do the same thing with Bo Nix, who stinks, as the backup plan for whenever it is that Matt Stafford leaves. All right, the other one on this, the Atlanta Falcons, they absolutely cannot do this. You should not be doing this. You just spent all of your money on Kirk Cousins. You can't then go to the first round of the draft and be like, hey, we're picking number 8 overall. We're going to get your succession plan in place when we have like 3 to 5 years remaining with Kirk Cousins. You have to maximize this window with Kirk Cousins in place, which means going out there and getting a corner, getting an edge rusher. That's what you do there, or moving back and taking the best guy. I think what the Atlanta Falcons are doing here by meeting with some of these guys, they are posing the threat of taking one of these quarterbacks, so that way the team that ends up moving up on draft day to number 8 when the Falcons are on the clock at least has in the back of our mind, hey, we got to move up to get that quarterback, so that way the Falcons don't take him, which means we got to pay a little bit more. I think that's what's happening there. I don't think there's actually any real threat of them.
Yeah, the Rams are hoping somebody pays a lot to get Bo Nix in that first round. If you're the Falcons, though, like, compared to what somebody's going to pay you for it versus what you could get with the 8th overall pick, is the juice worth the squeeze there? Because, I mean, you got your quarterback now. You've got the weapons. You feel like you got a pretty decent team. You got the head coach, you believe. Is the price that somebody's going to pay, which typically, I mean, what, a future first-round pick and maybe a couple of other draft picks, is that worth the squeeze of what you could get at 8 overall?
Yeah, because there's not any really great edge rushers in this year's class. If there was a guy like an Aiden Hutchinson who was expected to drop to number 8 because of all the amazing receivers and quarterbacks in the class, yeah, stay there, pick them, get it done. There's 3 pretty good edge rushers, but nobody really has a good sense on which one is the clear-cut best.
Everything I've seen is the kid from UCLA is the one that the Falcons
and I would say that
take.
The majority of what I've seen is that Dallas Turner, the Alabama kid, is the best one. So, like, it could go either way. And then there's Jared Verse from Florida State, who's also seen as a riser in this year's class as a defensive end as well. I would trade down. I would get out of the pick, trade down, and then either take one of the edge rushers or a corner and see what you can get there. You're not trading down to, like, 32, but get down into the teens.
You'd like that, wouldn't you?
I would love that. That would be great. Go up. If you're the Chiefs, get yourself some Rome Odunze. Let's see what that looks like, big boy.
Just trade Patrick Mahomes for it.
Well,
yeah.
Travis Kelce.
All right, take Bo Nix later. Get out of the Rams draft board.
So there's a piece over on NFL.com as well about the receivers that are, on Yahoo Sports, about the receivers that are expected to go in the first round of this year's class. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this because it feels like it's something that everybody's excited about with the top 3, and then it's a question of who else is going to be going in that round, right? So, Alex, as you look at the receivers in this year's class and you think to yourself, guaranteed, no doubt about it, these guys are going. The guys that they have available for them in the first round this year, according to Charles Robinson of Yahoo Sports, Adonai Mitchell, he thinks is going in the first round. He's a Texas wide receiver. Xavier Worthy, the other Texas wide receiver, he believes will go in the first round. Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Rome Odunze, Marvin Harrison Jr. Do you have anybody else that you think would be added to that list? Neighbors, Harrison, Thomas, Odunze, Worthy, Mitchell.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. And I think you're pushing it with the Mitchell one. I think the Mitchell one is you're hoping that that's just a dark horse. I don't know if there's anybody else that I've seen or have heard people talk and get excited about other than those 3 or 4 wide receivers. And Worthy and Mitchell, we're talking about lowered towards it. I think you're talking about those top 3 guys being the difference makers, and then everything else is just you hope you find diamonds in the rough. I'm more excited about Odunze than I'm excited about the other 2, because it seems like that dude has got a ton of assets that people aren't giving him credit for.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the names for me that are first rounders. Maybe there'll be one more surprise that comes in that.
Xavier Legette.
Yeah, when you look at this class, the guys that I think are going to be the steals in the late rounds are those Texas guys.
Yeah.
I really like those Texas wide receivers. They're going to be going out later in that first round, maybe middle. We'll see where they end up. But watching those guys play at Texas last year with Quinn Ewers, I really love those guys. And I think that they could be the kind of the later steals in the first round of the draft this year. But to your question of, like, will there be more? Maybe, but I'm not really expecting it.
I think we end up getting one more. I don't know who it's going to be, because I think you see Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr. in the top 10. I think Brian Thomas goes somewhere in the 10 to 15 range. I think Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy go around the 15 to 25 range. And then look at what you have at the back end of the first round, guys. Like when you're looking at the teams that are selecting back there, Buffalo needs a wide receiver. Baltimore could use a wide receiver. Depending on what happens with Brandon Ayuk, San Francisco could potentially need a receiver. Kansas City absolutely needs another wide receiver. I think you're going to see a couple of guys go in the back half of that 20 range. And if they do, I think that's where you get like a probably Ladd McConkey going in the back half of that range. I could see something like that. I think that's where you end up seeing them go. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. What is your guys' like the number one thing you're excited about in this year's draft?
I want to see who I can hate that drafts J.J. McCarthy.
Who's your guy this year, Alex? You've had a guy each of the last.
Mine's Penix Jr.
Okay.
I really think he's going to be tied for second best quarterback in this draft. I think he and Jaden Daniels are going to be fighting that one out. I think Penix Jr. is going to be better than McCarthy, better than Bo Nix. He's going to be the close to second best quarterback. And frankly, whoever takes him, I think is going to get a steal.
I was excited for the Rams pick. Now I'm getting skeptical of what they're going to do. I'm fascinated to know what happens to Bowers. I want to know who does Brock Bowers. I know. It feels so
Jets. He was complaining about that the other day.
It feels so like a Jets move. I'm fascinated to see with him, and I'm fascinated to see if somebody trades out of the top 4. I'm wondering if New England gets blown away with an offer, but now that Robert Kraft's reportedly getting more involved.
Dude. His son is apparently like running the team. Did you see that report this morning?
Oh yeah, that pick is so
I saw the report that
traded.
the Crafts were getting more involved. I didn't see his kid was like running the team.
So they have not. Elliott Wolf is the new GM, the de facto GM, because somebody at the combine, one of the reporters from Boston said when Elliott Wolf came to the podium, "Hey, who's like in charge of things right now?" Because they didn't announce anybody. They didn't say anybody's the new general manager after Bill Belichick. And Elliott Wolf said, I'm the one that's making the final decisions. And then there was a report that came out this morning that it's actually Robert Kraft's son, Jonathan, who's like managing everything. Elliott Wolf has not been given the term general manager. He's not technically the GM of the team right now. So
yeah, it doesn't feel like going into a draft.
That pick's going to be traded elsewhere.
They'll probably just take a quarterback.
What if they take McCarthy?
I saw a mock draft. I think it was either Bucky Brooks or Charles Davis that had him as the third overall pick.
The reason why I say if the owner is getting more involved, Robert Kraft is super close with Tom Brady. That was kind of part of the falling out with Bill Belichick is when Belichick said we need to get rid of Brady. Brady was like a son to Robert Kraft, and they're still super close. Where did Brady go to college?
Good old Michigan.
It's got some pretty good ties to the university still, to that program. Who was the quarterback at the University of Michigan this year?
Yikes, J.J. McCarthy.
Cool, so just keep chasing Tom Brady and see if that works out for you.
I'm telling you, man, I don't think it's totally bat bleep crazy to think that J.J. McCarthy could go number 3 overall, and then Arizona, when they're on the clock, has Drake May sitting there, and everybody in the middle of the first round is saying, we got to go up to get our guy. Like, Minnesota might send everything the direction of Arizona to be able to get that guy. That's what I'm most interested in.
And what's funny is, like, I'm with Alex. I just don't think McCarthy's going to be a great NFL quarterback. I can see how if you're New England, you talk yourself into it. Because if you bring in Drake May, though I would probably sit him because the roster stinks, you're bringing in Drake May because he can start right away. What's the whole consensus on J.J. McCarthy? It's probably better for him to sit a year. Well, guess who's in a good position to sit him? The New England Patriots with Jacoby Brissett, who can go out there and take the beating for the first season while McCarthy learns.
It's going to be interesting, man. That's all tomorrow night. We'll see what ends up coming up tomorrow as we get closer and closer to this year's NFL draft. All right, coming up next, what grade would you give Doug Armstrong for the season that he just put together? We'll give you ours. Hear from yours next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK. Did you wake up this morning and think to yourself, man, I just don't have the same energy that I did 3, 4, 5 years ago. I'm not feeling like myself. Maybe you feel yourself going through some mood swings here and there. Well, that could all be potential symptoms of low testosterone. And over at Victory Men's Health, they can check you out for that. They'll check you out for other stuff, too. They do an entire lab draw. They've got this kit that will check all your micronutrient levels to find out, okay, what's the best way for us to go about unlocking your inner champion? And that's what they're going to do at Victory Men's Health. If you'd like to read up on them, victorymenshealth.com is the place where you can go. They've got all of the frequently asked questions over there. You can see what they can help you out with, whether it's weight loss, vitamin deficiencies, low testosterones. You walk through the door and you immediately realize, man, this is not like any other low T place that I've been to in the past. It is a beautiful state-of-the-art type of a place. They've got 4 great locations that you could go check out across the St. Louis area: O'Fallon, Illinois, O'Fallon, Missouri, Town and Country, and their newest location is open now in Sunset Hills, Missouri. Read about them at victorymenshealth.com. That's Victory Men's Health and victorymenshealth.com.
Free. Who doesn't love free? With Milo's Rewards, you get the member-only treatment that's actually worth it. Enjoy free member gifts you'll love. And once you reach Silver Key status, you can get free standard shipping. Because Lowe's knows nothing feels better than free. Learn more about our new loyalty program at Lowe's.com/Milo's Rewards today. Program subject to terms and conditions. See Lowe's.com/terms for details. Member gifts may be subject to additional terms and restrictions. See Lowe's.com/shipping terms for details. Subject to change.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. 120,000 miles of night drives, daily commutes, and who knows how many.
Are we there yet?
Through countless fixes, elbow grease, and a new radiator, you kept your ride alive. With eBay Motors, you have over 122 million parts to keep it running. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, they'll be the perfect fit every time. Plus, at these prices, well, we're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Spring is right around the corner, and it's the perfect time to consider refreshing the outside look of your home. More than just gutter experts, Gutter Pros and Exteriors can help you get the curb appeal of your dreams. If your vision includes soffit, fascia, or siding, call today for a free estimate. Free gutter cleanout is included with every leak protection purchase. Visit gutterpros.com to learn more and fill out an estimate request form. Gutter Pros and Exteriors provides a no high-pressure sales approach to help you find the right solution. Gutter Pros and Exteriors. Water goes where we tell it.
ESPN Sports Center.
Terry Henderson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals are trying to take Game 3 of their 3-game set against the Arizona Diamondbacks as Jordan Montgomery's taking on Kyle Gibson. They are in the top of the 6th. The Arizona Diamondbacks lead St. Louis 1-0. We'll keep you updated on the Cardinals score throughout the day here on 101 ESPN. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. All right, so what grade would you give Doug Armstrong, the Blues president of hockey operations, for the job that he did over the past year? Alex, we saw the piece over on The Athletic. Jeremy Rutherford put together his grades for everybody as part of the organization, goalies, forwards, defensemen, coach, etc. We don't need to go through all of them, but for Doug Armstrong, he ended up giving him a C-. He said, last year I gave Armstrong an F. Some folks will want another F for this year, or a D at best, but I can't continue to grade him based on bad contracts that were signed multiple years ago. He continued from there, but that's the gist of it. Alex, what grade would you give Doug Armstrong for the performance that he had over the past year?
I'd give him a C+. I don't know if I could get into the B conversation, but I'd give him a C+. And here's why. I'm with JR. We can't keep grading Doug Armstrong on the bad contracts he's handed out. Those grades are already there, and you're stuck with them now. And I know in the offseason, T-Bone and I talked about how you'd give last year's Armstrong. T-Bone said an F because you couldn't move on from any of those contracts. But the way I viewed it with Doug Armstrong this year was, look, you tried to make improvements. Those players did not work out. Verona, Kapanen, Blais, you brought in players that were expected to make an impact. They didn't. I can't fault him for that. At least you were aggressive rather than some that would just say, we'll stick with the same guys we've got here. I think in terms of what Doug proved this season with the drafting and development process of Kessel, of Bolduc, of Jake Neighbors, of Joel Hofer, that's where I would spike his grade a little bit, because you're seeing the benefits of what Doug Armstrong was talking about for this team. And in terms of other individual players, you did make improvements. Firing Berube, you get a little bit of a downgrade there, but you made the decision at the right time to keep your team competitive. So I looked at it and I said, look, I'd give the guy a C+, because I don't think I can get into the B conversation, but I can't give him a D or an F for something that happened 3 years ago, and now you're stuck in this spot.
Go ahead.
The following players cost you $10 million this year against your $80 million cap. Kevin Hayes, Kapanen, Blais, Sonny, Verona. I liked Sonny. That worked out pretty well. The rest of them, it's really hard for me to say went particularly well for the Blues. Like, Kevin Hayes was a really underwhelming addition relative to expectations, and we didn't have high expectations. He was a healthy scratch down the stretch when they didn't even care about winning at that point, and he was still a healthy scratch for them. Blais, Kapanen, Verona, I would say we're net negatives this year for the St. Louis Blues. So I would go like C-, D+. I don't know how much he did this past offseason that improved the team. And that's where it makes it difficult for me, because I'm with you, Alex. Like, if you want to give him credit for Neighbors, I guess we could go there, but that happened years ago. That's not like this year he added Jake Neighbors to the roster. Neighbors has been around. It was part of the addition to the roster via a draft that was multiple years ago. So it's hard for me to do that. Otherwise, I am going to include some of the other contracts that he signed years ago that are now impacting the roster. So just based on what he was able to add to this roster over the past calendar year, it's hard for me to give him a really great grade, while also acknowledging that I do believe that the future is bright for the team.
Yeah, I would give him a D. I think you have to hold the contracts that he signed a couple years ago still to how you grade him, because it's what prevents him from improving the roster. Look at the Torrey Krug deal. Sure, he signed Torrey Krug's contract, 3-4 years ago? It's what blocked him from getting Travis Sanheim this offseason. You know, Torrey Krug had a no trade in there that he could reject. So I think that those contracts that he signed years ago need to be in this equation. I think that Kevin Hayes, and to your point, all the offseason bringbacks, additions, whatever you want to call them, they were net negatives. I think Kevin Hayes is now even more of a net negative, because for the Blues to probably get rid of him, they probably got to eat salary. So they basically have to pay a player to go away, essentially. And I also think the trade deadline, he did nothing to help the team at the trade deadline. Whether you want to view it, I didn't think he was a buyer, to be fair, but he didn't bring in any assets. In fact, he moved literally nothing at the NHL trade deadline. And look, I didn't want him to just sell Buch for nothing. Like, he had to get a good deal if he was going to trade Pavel Buchnevich, but nothing at the trade deadline did not improve the team for the future as well. I would say this was a D season for Doug Armstrong as the general manager of the St. Louis Blues, because I just don't see the positive steps. And to your point, I would give him credit. They do seem to have a bright future. Yep. But when I'm grading him on the here and the now, and how he constructed the roster and how he operated with the roster this year. And I did not think it was particularly a good job.
Somebody on the text line did bring up a fair point, Alex. What about a successful draft? Does he get any points for that? It's hard for me to say it was a successful draft yet, but all signs point to Dvorsky being the correct pick where they took him. And that's something that you should give him points for. Like, he deserves credit for making the right choice with what appears to be at least the right choice with Dalibor Dvorsky. Other than that, though, it's just impossible for me to grade anything else that they were able to do in the draft because we have no clue how any of them will translate to the NHL level yet.
I don't really know. Yeah, that, and I don't really know if I can give the president of hockey operations all of the credit for that draft. Like, you got to give it to the guy who's doing all of the scouting and the directing of all of the scouts to put all of those informations together. So yeah, I mean, it was a successful draft. I would have said if he pulled off a trade in that draft to either move up or bring in a piece that made you better, with the exception of Kevin Hayes, which happened a couple days before, then I would give him credit for a successful draft. But I don't really know if I look at it as a successful draft for Doug Armstrong.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone on BK. We'll hit the rewind coming up next.
The NBA playoffs are back on ESPN Saturday. Lakers and Nuggets Game 4. Pregame at 7. Tip-off at 7:30. The NBA plays on 101 ESPN.
Warmer weather is finally here, and it's time to bust out of the house and out of your routines. Get outside and try something new, like the new Bacon Cajun Ranch McCrispy. Pair it with an Oreo frappe and McDonald's world-famous fries. Say yes to spring with tender chicken covered in tangy Cajun Ranch sauce. You can even get 25% off any order of $5 or more when you use mobile order and pay in the app. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Offer valid through May 19th, 2024. Participating McDonald's. Valid once a day. Excludes tax. Must opt into rewards. Oreo is a trademark of Mondelez International Group. Used under license.
Auto Centers is thrilled to tell you that their Fresh Start program has just started, and it runs now through the end of April. It is specifically designed to make upgrading into a new car easier and more affordable. Take advantage of some of the best deals and incentives on select new Nissan vehicles, all at Auto Centers Nissan Herculaneum. They got 0% APR and payment terms all the way to 84 months, up to $5,000 off MSRP, and no down payment needed. 3 months of no payments they offer you. Give your wallet a break and save your tax money. As always, all new Nissans at Auto Centers Nissan Herculaneum. They come with exclusive lifetime warranty and 30-day return promises. Within 30 days, if you want to bring the vehicle back for any reason, they will refund the price, get you into something else. They don't just sell cars at Auto Centers Nissan. They create unforgettable experiences, one happy customer at a time. Visit them, AutoCentersNissan.com. Check them out in Herculaneum. Tell them Stalter sent you. It's Auto Centers Nissan.
Run it back with the Daily Rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Let's go Cardinals! Let's go Cardinals!
Yeah, you will be the only one clapping
They're back,
for that one.
baby! Up 2-1 against the Arizona Diamondbacks at the end of the 6th inning.
Could have been 3-1, but, Cardinals don't know how to get those productive outs.
And again,
If you're wondering how we got here, Nolan Arenado comes through once again, and so does Paul Goldschmidt, who's standing at the plate as the ball goes past him.
Didn't even take the bat off of his back.
RBI single for Arenado, and then Contreras scores on a wild pitch by Jordan Montgomery as Goldschmidt's at the plate, and then Goldie immediately strikes out. Herrera flies out. We're out of the inning.
Is that a productive out?
No.
Essentially.
If Herrera and Goldie had been flipped, it still wouldn't have been a productive out because he wouldn't have scored.
Technically, Goldie struck out and the run scored, so that would be a productive out,
There was
correct?
no out, though.
Well, it was. He struck out after the run scored, so
it's after. It
was a good out.
To your point, the run was scored, and then he strikes
out. It was one out at the at-bat, so it was productive.
Nope, doesn't work that way.
In other
Cardinals up
words,
2-1 at
Cardinals
the end of the
gifted a
6th inning.
Gifted a win.
Cardinals were indeed gifted a run, so they have...
Again.
I will give credit where credit is due, though. Kyle Gibson's pitched a good game, man.
He's got out of
6
some
innings.
There's Lance Lynn-esque. He's gotten out of some tough jams.
I think it was really just that first inning, wasn't it? Because that first inning, he ends up with a single, hit by pitch, sac fly. So
I thought it was like 2 innings ago.
Base runners there.
I thought it was like 2 innings ago, whether it was the last one or 2 before, but he had first and second with only 1 out or no outs.
First and second, no outs, strikeout, ground out to get out of the inning.
That was Lance Lynn-esque right there.
He's had 2 innings where it got a little dicey on him, but overall 6 strikeouts on the day, 1 earned run allowed. Has only had 2 walks, so 7 base runners in the 6 innings. That's a pretty good Kyle Gibson game, man. You can't really ask for a whole lot more than that. The results ended up being okay for him, and now you're going to JoJo Romero up 2-1 in the top of the 7th. By the way, if you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check out the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. Alex, let's finish the show where we started it, which is on Jordan Walker. Sent down earlier today. Cardinals decide, you know what, we're going to go with Donovan and Nootbaar in the corners basically every day for the foreseeable future. They got a bunch of right-handed pitchers coming up on the other side of things. Meanwhile, Walker's hitting like $175. What did you make of the decision to send him down?
Yeah, I didn't like it because I would have liked to see Jordan Walker try and figure it out up here at the major league level, but I understand the move had to be done because you've got guys who are hitting that need to be in the lineup, specifically both of your catchers. You have a roster spot for Pages, mostly because you need both catchers to play, and when it comes to your outfield, you, at this point, still need that defense for how much the offense has lacked. So, I mean, you're in a spot where you have to put him down. It's just concerning on the development side for Jordan Walker. I'm not in the same spot where a lot of Cardinals fans are that are yelling bust of a player. That is not the case for a dude that's not even 22 years old yet. But it's just concerning. It's back-to-back years that before May we're talking about him being sent down to find his confidence.
Yeah, I think they made the right decision to send him down. I'm not worried about the development side of things. I think this is the best case for Jordan Walker. And if he is going to develop into a superstar, he has to go down and work on things. He's got to close that hip, make sure it doesn't fly open during at-bats, because that's why the book out on him is slider away, fastball away. He cannot hit anything going the other way because his hip is leaking out. He's getting on top of the ball, and it's just soft ground out. So I'm not concerned. I'm a little concerned about it in terms of like how you're going to start viewing him long-term, that it is back-to-back years he's had to go down and you didn't see the improvement. It's not like this is a different issue. This is the same issue from a year ago. But I think overall he's going to be fine, and I don't think this is a Cardinals issue. I think this is a Jordan Walker's got to figure it out issue. Here are some players with worse OPSs in their first 2 seasons prior to their age 22 year. Van Jordan Walker. Jose Ramirez, Ketel Marte, Anthony Volpe, Byron Buxton, Nolan Arenado, Xander Bogaerts, Bobby Wood Jr., Luis Robert. Jordan Walker's going to be all right, guys. I truly, in my heart of hearts, believe that. He is so incredibly young, and I know people get so frustrated hearing that, and I get it. I really do. But it's true, man. He's 21 years old. He still has not turned 22 yet.
And we're asking him to go out there and do things that, like Adley Rutschman was 24 years old when he made his major league debut. He had 4 seasons in college, and then it went into the minor league system, had a couple of years there, and finally got to the big leagues. You're asking Walker to do now what a lot of prospects that are going to be drafted incredibly highly in this year's draft did over the past couple of seasons while in college. And he's doing it at the highest level against the best pitchers in the world. We talk about the difference between AAA pitching and the majors. Now imagine the difference between college pitching and the majors. I think he's going to get there. He's learning on the job. And I think it was the right choice to send him down today. So that way he can get that confidence level back, because it had clearly evaporated for him. So I think he'll be all right. He'll come back up to the big leagues, I would guess, within the next month or two. And I think he's going to be a big part of what the Cardinals are trying to accomplish down the stretch. He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. If you guys missed any of the show, be sure to check out the podcast page after the show today. You can always check us out live on YouTube as well. YouTube.com/101ESPNSTL. Enjoy the rest of the Cardinals game. Fingers crossed they get a win today. Fastlane coming up next. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. here on 101 ESPN.